I can't even.
Yeah, good morning, distinguished participants. If you could hear me, we are just getting ready to start our program today. Thank you for finding time to join us. In a minute, we'll be starting. Okay. Once again, dear participants, welcome for this session. This is our scheduled second quarter sensitization, and we are glad to have you here. I think now we are set to get started. Just as we had indicated in our program, thank you that we are able to start in time. Maybe before we start, we could start off with a word of prayer. Okay, shall we pray? Almighty Father, we bow before your presence this morning. We want to thank you for the gift of life. We want to thank you for the gift of one another. And for those who are here, thank you, oh Lord, that you have given us this opportunity in this country to serve in our different capacities. We want to thank you for our dear participants who found time to participate in this as we canvass this national agenda for our country, as we discuss the issues of mainstreaming science, technology, and innovation in our programs, in our activities for the posterity of this country. We want to seek the God presence as we transact this business today, and to ask for God wisdom and gift as we discuss, shall be able to lead and put this country to the next level. And from Peter Bo, we want to ask this that may be successful for the greater glory of your name. That was this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Okay, thank you so much again. I will also take this opportunity really to welcome you on behalf of NACOST management, because this is our national agenda that we really need to partner with all of you Today, again, we are having an opportunity to discuss this with one of our greatest stakeholders, so far as our country mandate is concerned. Our Ministries, State Department, you are our key pillars as far as this agenda is concerned. We are all here because we agree and that the role of science, technology, and innovation is critical for us to achieve our mandate and aspiration as a country, as a region, and even for our institutions. So this morning we have a session that we really want to take advantage of this moment, and want to say this is it's a time well spent because we know we are approaching the festive seasons, and you are able to spend your time so that we can have a discussion. And also, this is NACOST's commitment that every quarter we should be able to have this discussion, more so to make this performance contract indicator is for implementation. We really don't want to have an agenda that will really constrain you or add more burden to the more already busy schedules that you do have. So this is a caustic commitment that we needed to walk this journey together. Why? For the obvious reason that this is a very important and critical for our country. So this second quarter sensitization program we have today, we want to deal with the State Department, the ministries, because you are the pillars of the country's agenda. And we will have a very simple discussion, and I know this is important for you. It is important for us. One, we will have an opportunity to just quickly up to speed, so that we're able to bring you quick speed in terms of the regulatory framework as to why we are having STI mainstreaming in our PC contracts. Why is it a cost agenda? No, it's a national agenda. So we would want to have that conversation. Just high overview on the regulatory framework as we do that. And it is very important for us to have you, and more so also to appreciate those who are attending for the first time. Very important. Feel welcome. You where you belong, and we will be able to run through the whole indicator. The Director General will join us a while later, because you had already seen the program. But mainly what we will do, the Director General will join us later to speak about the regulatory framework. We have an opportunity this morning to just go overview of this indicator. Why? Because we want everybody to be on the same page. We want to walk the journey together. So we'll have a conversation as to what are the requirements. Because I know you are joining as focal persons, champions, PC coordinators, and why are we doing this? So that we are able to break it down. This STI mainstreaming indicator, what is it about? Why and what is your role, and how we should be able to transact this business for the next piece of the year. But the most important thing, remember what I'm always stressing, this is a national agenda. It's not an acoustic business, but we're doing this on behalf of our country. One of the commitments that we have done in terms of our objective and why we are here, we also want to share the reporting tool. And this is very important, because from stakeholders that you committed NACOST to revise the tool, the reporting tool, to simplify and to make it easy for implementation of this. Today we are presenting the revised tool for reporting, and that will be online. More important is that it is going to make your work easier, and because that is our intention, ease of doing business. all your data that we have for Q1, you should be able to have an opportunity later after this training that you can be able to verify, and we walk that journey together. So before the end of our program today, that is one of our major agenda today, that we're able to share these. You have an opportunity to raise your issues, your concern, and interact with our panelists today, that we are able to make your work easy. So that is our next main agenda today, to present this online reporting tool. And underline the word, because as the stakeholders have indicated, and we always say the clients are right, that you wanted simplified, you wanted made simple, and exactly we have complied with that. We have an opportunity today for you to endorse whether we were able to meet that. So we really want also to thank you for having your time here, that we can interact with that. And again, we finally will have a business that we need to discuss, because we are saying, as we are mainstreaming science, technology, and innovation, one of the most important tools that will help us to institutionalize this, it is our institutional IP policy, intellectual property management policy. Again, it is a main agenda for this country, because for us to make good use of all these science, research, science, technology, and innovation products, we need to have that conducive environment. And in that, we really need our institution to have domesticated institutional intellectual property policy. Then we have a national framework, that a model that we are using, but we want you to have it in your own language, so that we are able to articulate your own issues. So NACOST is providing a framework that will be able to make things simple for you. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that we will have that build about okay. Sorry, colleagues. We have this internet challenges. I lost you for a few minutes, but I will just try to summarize again what is our intention this morning here. That those major issues that we discuss, the reporting tool, the indicator, the STI mainstreaming indicator, its requirements and all that, and the need and why we need the institutional intellectual property. Of course, for the obvious reason to really promote the commercialization and promote creativity within our institutions. Because again, this country, we are always a leader in the region, and we need to take advantage of this. And we really want to thank our government for having taken this initiative to have science, technology, and innovation mainstreaming the performance contract platform. It's one of the best mechanisms. We are able to have this conversation, this discussion around that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to spare those few minutes and elaborate that in brief. For now, what we will do, we just tweak our program just a little bit, so that the next piece of item that I would wish to present to you is that we have a conversation around the overview of this STI indicator and its requirements. Because again, as you are joining as focal person, champion, PC coordinator, this is the key for you, so that you're able to have a feel, what does it entail, what is it for you, and how we are going to go around that. Then later on, we'll just have a very few minutes to discuss the templates for you to be able to do this institutional science, technology, and innovation strategy because that's the mechanism we want to use to have these institutionalized that can even outlive the performance contract indicator that you're able to do that. So we'll present that a while later. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to invite my colleague, one of our resource person we have this morning is Javan Miti, who will try to make and break it down, this performance contract indicator, in a simpler form, a simpler language, and what is your role. And I think that will be an important opportunity this morning to start. Then the Director General will join us later to give that high overview in terms of the regulatory framework. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you for the next piece of this presentation. Javan, if you are ready, you could take the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Gigi. A minute, I share my screen. Can see it. Thank you. Sorry. Just a minute. Oh, okay. Just a minute. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As Dr. Gigi has indicated, this is a great opportunity for us to share matters STI mainstreaming. The most critical thing is for us, already we're in the first quarter. We have already submitted for our first quarter. Technically, we are ending the second quarter that ends by the 30th of this month. And of course, we'll be expected to report by 15th of January next year. And that means one of the critical discussion that we should be having is basically experiences. What are the best practices? What are some of the gaps that you've been able to encounter? What is the value proposition of implementing this indicator? And basically, what is the most effective and efficient way to ensure that the remaining 2 quarters, that is the third quarter and fourth quarter, that we are able as MDAs, as ministries and state department, to ensure that successfully we are able to implement this indicator. Looking back at the year 2021, 2022, and probably the participation of ministries and state department, we have realized and we have come across challenges, we have come across areas that we need to improve so that we are able to do better and ensure that basically we are able to implement both the spirit and the body of this indicator. So basically my presentation will just be touching on that. On those key areas. As you are very much aware, this indicator basically is under our commandate. And as State Department, below you, you have SAGAs or you have downstream institutions that you negotiated with basically to implement this indicator. So basically as a ministry, you have a very high or big responsibility. And I'm very sure when my colleague will be looking at the STI strategy, the template, and how the scope of how we are supposed to develop our STI strategies, then that is a very big opportunity for us to ask ourselves as a State Department, as we commit within our STI strategies, then what happens to the downstream institutions to ensure that indeed they are able to implement part of what is needed. Of course, as State Department, you know very well you have the sector plan or the sector plan basically for the ministry. And much of it is done or is implemented through the downstream institutions, the SAGAs below you. And then it will be very, very good today to have that discussion to ask ourselves in terms of efficiency, effectiveness, in terms of ensuring that both the objectives of STI mainstreaming, how are we attaining it as a ministry, how are we attaining it within our downstream institutions. And that's why, if, for example, you have developed your STI strategy, you realize one of the commitments under your objective, under the strategic issues, as you go through those 8 or 9 strategic issues, those objectives that you'll be setting and the strategies, then we must ensure that indeed we are able to either coordinate, we need to have objectives that helps us to coordinate not only within our ministries or our State Department, but even to ensure that the sagas below us are able to help you attain your STI strategies and basically to attain the sector plan for the Ministry of the State Department. So basically that will be critical, and it will be good to engage in terms of asking ourselves, how do we efficiently and effectively ensure that not only do we implement these indicators as a ministry, because of course, looking at the point from MTP4, looking at the Vision 2030, looking at your own strategic plans as ministry, and the coordination role that you have, how do we effectively ensure that we are able to canvass this across our respective ministries, State Department, and the sagas that are below us? So that will be very, very, very critical. Matter of science, technology, innovation, I will not take a lot of time on it. I know already you know what is the critical role that science, technology, innovation is supposed to play. Looking at, as I said, MTP4, looking at your own sector plan, looking at the strategic STI strategy that you have developed, the role of science, technology, and innovation is very, very, very critical. And the beauty is that, as I said earlier, we're in second quarter, so we are supposed to look at the challenges as we reported in our first quarter. What were the main challenges? What were the issues that we intended to address so that we ensure that we have a smooth second quarter, we have a smooth third quarter, and ultimately our 4 cumulative quarters are reported and we attain what is expected. I'll basically look at the inclusion of these STI mainstreaming relation to our State Department and more so to the sagas. As I said, your role, of course, cut across a State Department. And I know most of the State Department already, for example, have developed the STI strategies. And as I said again, what is very, very important, because for effective implementation, the State Department must clearly get it right in terms of the indicator itself, in terms of what is expected, in terms of cascading the same as probably negotiated with the your sagas as you negotiate the as you report, even as a State Department to report. Probably the question is how we need to have that understanding, or probably that coordination point whereby we need to ensure that our sagas or the downstream institutions are also able to do what is expected. The relevance of the indicator, again, I will not emphasize so much on this. As I said, again, looking at Vision 2030, it's an enabler. MTP4, most of you, I know you have participated in the development of the MTP4, the government Kenya Kwanza transformative agenda, and the development. Basically, it's a fundamental driver of economic social development. So what we are saying basically, and our point of discussion should be, when we look at our performance PCs as a State Department, this indicator is within your core mandate, but at the same time, looking at the MDAs that are below, or the downstream institutions that are directly under you, then the question is, what are we doing to ensure that there is an effective implementation across? If you look at the core mandate, one of the requirements under the core mandate is that the indicators under core mandate ideally should fall either within the better Vision 2030, SDGs, and Agenda 2063 and SP, the sector performance standards across. And these ones, like SPS, basically they are catered within your sector plans for your respective State Department or the ministry specifically. And again, something else, of course, is also the compliance. You find that a ministry, for example, has 2 State Departments, and probably you have only 1 State Department reporting. And when you look at that in terms of evaluation, you realize, because the procedure is under PC, under performance contracting, when you are tabulating the score, the cumulative score for the ministry, you'd always look at the number of the State Department, and then you find the average of the same. So you find one of the big challenge is that probably you have 1 State Department reporting and the other State Department is not reporting. And as we said, of course, we know the relevance, we know the importance of science, technology, innovation across as aspirated either in Big 4, I mean in the government bottom-up economic agenda, or probably the MTP. So basically we find if there is no harmonious or there is no continuous implementation of the indicator across the State Department, then of course still you may find the same challenges under the SAGAs, or probably the downstream institutions that are reporting to the State Department. So the point is, we must ensure that each of the State Departments are able to clearly implement the indicator. To implement the indicator simply means you are able to appoint the focal persons, you are able to have the champions, you are able to ensure that indeed you have developed, for example, your STI strategy, the activities within your work plan have been implemented, so that there is that coordinated effort. And of course, also your role, you should also not forget your role as a State Department to ensure the same happens on the downstream institutions, so that as they report to NACOST, as your downstream institutions and yourself report to NACOST, then also you have a mechanism yourself to ensure that indeed this indicator is implemented across and within the scope and the mandate of the State Department. One of the requirements, and this is, I know probably we are having new State Department who are joining us for the first time. We'll be looking at condition on the same. But again, one of the critical requirements for you to implement this indicator is that you need to have appointed a focal person and champions. And of course, this is a requirement because for effective and efficient implementation of this indicator, it's very, very important to ensure that the focal persons are appointed and champions, and not only appointed, but also they should be trained. And as my colleagues stated earlier, every quarter there is always a sensitization, there is always a capacity building that is done. One, to build your capacity. Two, to fill any gaps, because you have already reported for first quarter. I'm sure NACOST communicated to you and gave you a feedback on how you performed for your first quarter. Then it is very, very important to have the ability to understand and to be able to report as it is expected, to implement as it is expected. So basically, the focal person and the champions plays a very critical role. Again, remember, you're also implementing other performance indicators across. So basically, this helps and ensures that there is smooth implementation of this indicator. So you're always encouraged to ensure that it can also be demand-driven. You can also request. We have a number of ministries and State Departments that previously, after going through a sensitization like this one that we are doing today, they always request for an institution or for a customized training and capacity building for either their focal person and champions, and probably for other aspects like development of the STI strategy and such. So basically, there's also that option whereby even if you participate in this free online sensitization, it is freely. You can always, if you feel like it's not adequate and sufficient, then you can request, and that can be done. NACOST, you can make a request to NACOST, and that can always be done. Basically, looking at the roles of the focal person, again, this is very important, more so for them that are joining us for the first time. The guidelines, the 20th cycle guidelines, as I started by saying, have clearly prescribed the indicator, and then the indicator is very clear what needs to be done. The guidelines foresee request the specialized agency like NACOST to give more information that can help MDAs to better understand the indicator and have an efficient and effective implementation process. So one of it is that they have, if you look at their website, to be able to find, they have given clear information on who is a focal person, and that's the information I'm sharing with you this morning. Of course, the focal person, as we said again, is a requirement. Number one, when it will come to reporting, you realize the role that a focal person plays, because you need to indicate as you report you have a focal person, and if so, then you attach the documentary evidence. They basically ensure coordination of the performance indicator in their respective areas. And when we talk about the respective areas, this coordination, the focal person should also be able, the focal person for the State Department should also be able to establish a working relationship with other focal persons for other MDA, for SAGAs and the downstream institutions that are reporting to the State Department, so that as the State Department implement, they are very sure this coordination does not only end at their level, but they are able to know, like for example, when negotiating with these the PCs for these sagas, you should be able to know, you should be part and parcel of that process to ensure that within their PCs, they are able to include STI mainstreaming, so that sometimes we find the sagas may find there's some sagas, some sagas or some MTAs that may struggle or may have issues, or probably one may start wondering whether they're supposed to implement STI mainstreaming. But you see, if the State Department has already committed and the sagas or those sagas are directly at the State Department, then we will not have that kind of discussion. They'll be able to understand. The discussion will be our State Department has already committed this indicator, and because of that, then automatically you expect the sagas below to commit based with their mandate. So that there is a smooth implementation from the State Department to the sagas below, because ideally the sagas borrow from the sector plan of the State Department. So even as you develop your STI, you realize your STI strategy, for example, much of implementation may happen at a lower level. There are some aspects that are supposed to be done or needs to be coordinated through the sagas or the downstream institution. So coordination is at that level. You coordinate a State Department. Also, you should have a mechanism to ensure that indeed what you have committed as a State Department is being implemented downstream, so that collectively you are able to attain the mandate of the State Department. Because sagas, of course, sagas are sagas under specific State Department contribute towards the same mandate. So that is very important. And if that happens, then of course we'll say the ministry is able to attain its intended purpose or its mandate and the objective that are set for that specific ministry or State Department. So that coordination is very, very critical for ministries and State Department, so that collectively we can be able to have a common approach and common actualization of what is expected. Providing necessary support for the various levels, again, is very critical to plan and ensure sensitization and capacity building. The focal person can always contact in a cost in case you need more sensitization or capacity building to ensure that the staff and everyone within the State Department and below, they are able to understand and they are able to smoothly implement the indicator. So that is very, very important. Coordinate development and implementation of STI strategy. As I said again, as you develop the STI strategy, it's a role of the focal person to ensure that successfully the State Department has developed its STI strategy. And this STI strategy, as we said, there must be a coordination. There must be that effort to ensure that there is an alignment between the State Department and the sagas below, so that the sagas, as they also commit their aspect within their mandate that is contributing towards the State Department, then of course those matters are clearly captured. Establish and implement monitoring and evaluation mechanism. Again, I said again, not only for the State Department, but you should be able, I remember one of the PC indicator this year is to ensure MDAs are reporting on implementation of various government circulars and directives and such, which cut across everyone. So we expect the State Department also to have a mechanism that cut across not only to the State Department, but even to sagas below, to ensure that, because you see you are contributing towards the same, the roadmap is the same, the mandate, the direction is the same, so that there is that smooth implementation, so that if all the State Department are able to do that and the sagas below them, then you'll be able to collectively see, as this ministry, within the mandate of each State Department, within the mandate of each of the sagas, or probably the downstream institutions, then collectively you are contributing towards what is expected. Promoting collaboration, partnership, and networks with the stakeholders. Again, that is the role of the focal person, and as we said, it's cut across. Promoting STI within the State Department, ensuring quarterly and annual PC report on STI mainstreaming as submitted. Again, the guidelines are very clear. Summation of this, it is your responsibility to ensure that as a focal person, that this report are submitted. Not only are they submitted, but even the same compliance is felt downstream, so that as a ministry, you are able to participate and ensure that what is expected is done. The requirement basically of a focal person should be either be in top management or middle level, but of key and of very, very importance is overseeing implementation of research, someone who is conversant with matters, research, science, technology, and innovation within their respective areas, so that at the end of the day, of course, the same capacity, NACOST has taken it upon themselves to build the capacity of the focal person so that they are able to deliver within their mandate, within what is expected. Next is the champions. Again, as we said, champion can be 1, 2, 3, 4. It depends with the size and the unique size of the State Department or the ministry. So you may realize the focal person, of course, will be 1. And ideally, with the focal person and the champion, then you're able to establish the STI Ministreaming Committee for the State Department, with the focal person as a chair and champions as members. So this committee is critical, and champions will be very, very critical because they will oversee the day-to-day implementation. You realize not only are you implementing STI Ministreaming as a PC indicator, you have other cross-cutting indicators and other indicators within your PC that you're implementing. So basically, for a collective, as we said, one of the key things with our today's training is also to share experiences on the best practice and what is expected, so that collectively we are able to post, or we are able to implement and benefit from both the body and the spirit of this, the performance, the indicator itself, and the PC basically. So they do day to day within their respective areas. They are able to implement, they are able to ensure that implementation at their respective areas takes place as it should. They facilitate in cascading the indicator within their respective areas, preparing and forwarding quarterly report on implementation to the focal person. Again, as we said, they basically help the focal person to ensure effective and efficient implementation of this indicator. They provide timely information required in the evaluation of the implementation of the indicator. Again, remember, for smooth implementation, because again, as a State Department, you have many departments. So ensure that these champions should be appointed across. There should be a fair representation of all departments within the State Department, so that basically then you are able to ensure that the intended activities that are marked for implementation are implemented at those lower levels. This is very important. And for you to effectively implement the indicator, then we must have champions who come across. So ensure the department. Champions, as we said, it depends with the unique size and or the nature of the State Department, but ideally we should have a fair representation. Of course, as you point again, remember, one of the strategic issue within the STI strategy is matters gender. So basically, you need to ensure inclusivity. You need to ensure that as your point, they come across, you respect the gender parity and all that, so that indeed we can use this as a point of strengthening science, technology, and innovation across the human resource, across the departments in the respective State Department. They undertake continuous monitoring. Again, as we said, you're already reporting for other PC indicators, basically, and you have an established monitoring and evaluation framework in place. Rather than develop, or rather than have another new way of doing, always try to borrow from what is existing or improve it. But ideally, it is the responsibility of the focal persons to ensure that effective monitoring and evaluation has taken place. You are able to monitor, you are able to evaluate. Of course, you monitor. To monitor is to ensure that what was intended, what was planned for, is happening as per the plan. There is always that roadmap, there is always that plan that indicate how things should be done. You have a work plan, for example, you monitor to ensure that activities in the work plan happen as it was indicated. Remember, one of the performance indicator under financial stewardship that used to have is compliance with set budgetary levels, for example. When you talk about compliance with set budgetary levels, you realize you plan activities and you budget accordingly. So it's a question of using the money for the intended activity, for the intended purpose. And that's what we are referring to as. So monitoring must stick to the established framework. Evaluation, of course, is to simply ask yourself a very simple question. We plan to walk 5 kilometers. How many kilometers have we covered? That is evaluation. To simply look at, when you evaluate, you either evaluate at mid-term, you either evaluate at end-term, you always evaluate at quarterly basis, but simply you're answering the question. How much of the journey that I intended to cover have I been able to cover? There are those things that I plan to do. How much of them have I been able to attain? How much resources we allocated 5 shillings to attain 2 things. How much of that money have we been able to? What was the deviation from what was expected? Again, you have at evaluation level, you are looking at impact again. What was the impact? We planned to do 4 things. We did 2 things. So the 2 things we did, what is the impact of attaining those 2 things? The 2 things that we didn't attain, what is the impact of not attaining that? So basically, you're also establishing impact at evaluation level so that you are able now to continually, not continuous, continually improve. Continually meaning that improvement is not on a straight line. There are some times that you do exactly what you wanted. There are some times that you may miss because of either exogenous factors or many other issues. Then, of course, you pick from there and then. And that way you realize that anytime we talk about monitoring and evaluation, then there is always learning because you are filling those gaps, you are addressing those gaps, you are using the experiences and the lessons to better the process. So continuous monitoring and evaluation is a critical aspect of smooth implementation of STI mainstreaming. And this is a role that champions are supposed to play. Ensure continuous STI capacity building. One, you can participate like today, what NACOST is doing. As I said again, there is always also demand-driven, whereby you feel like a state department, we have this challenge, which is unique to us as a state department, and we want NACOST to help us. You always write to NACOST, and NACOST to be able to respond. And this indeed has happened. Most of state departments that needed such assistance have done so, and NACOST has been able to help them. Promoting STI committed activities is a role again, and providing necessary support to support evaluation. Remember, ultimately, at the end of it all, cumulatively, after 4 quarters, you'll be evaluated. So continuous ensuring that you continuously ensure that you have the necessary documentary evidence to support. As it is with any change management, I know you have champions for other things. The critical aspect in terms of who should be appointed is that anyone who has the ability to champion, transform, and lobby others in implementation of the STI committed activities. So ability to champion, ability to transform and lobby others. As we said, of course, STI mainstreaming, as I started by saying, is one of the new indicators, roughly like 2 years old under our PC system. And basically it's a implementation, successive implementation is a progressive process. And with that, we need champions that are able to transform and help others to basically ensure. In terms of the scope, who should be in STI mainstreaming, you're already there, but in a very simple way. If you look at Vision 2030, as I said again, it's an enabler number 2. So everyone, I believe, everyone who is contributing to the successful implementation of Vision 2030 qualifies to undertake and implement this indicator. Because as we said again, it's an enabler, it's a key enabler. When you look at MTP4, again, it's strongly STI mainstreaming or research science technology innovation is a serious and a critical aspect. And of course, again, when you look at better bottom-up economic agenda, transformation agenda, basically, again, matters, research, science, technology, and innovation are clearly canvassed. And that, I think, I clearly canvassed through the relevance when I was talking about relevance. And so, we expect everyone and all the ministries all the ministries to participate, to find ways and means. So quickly, this is how, when we started this indicator in 18th cycle, performance contracting guidelines, this is how it was. And don't take a lot of time there. I'll go straight to what we are supposed to do this year. And in 2024, in 2023, 2022, 2020, 2023, 2024, depending on the level of implementation, MDs are required to appoint or reappoint focal person. I think I've talked about that, and champions, of course. But these are the key activities that are supposed to be implemented in 2023, 2024. You are required to either develop, you are supposed to develop or implement STI strategy using the provided template. And then, of course, you either develop and implement the annual work plan and submit the quarterly report. So basically, what we are saying is that either as a ministry, you are developing as a ministry, you are either developing STI ministry strategy, or you have already developed the same. Number two, you develop the work plan. The work plan, ideally, if you have not developed STI strategy, your work plan includes development of STI strategy. If you have already developed the STI strategy, then the work plan helps you actualize your STI strategy. You have to look at the implementation matrix of your STI strategy and then develop a work plan on a yearly basis that segregate matters or activities that needs to be done for that respective year. When you talk about STI mainstreaming in a broader sense, we are basically looking at it against our internal processes, against what we do, against our mandate, against the actualization of our mandate as an institution. And as you realize, when you look at your corporate planning process, we have the work plans, and within the work plans, when you have the overall organization work plan for the year, respectively, this is where you shed your activities. And these activities are directly from your work plan and from your STI strategy. You are basically indicating what you want to give priority, because this is the basis of developing your budget, your annual budget. You are looking at your strategic plan. As we said again, within your strategic plan, the STI strategy becomes a creature of your strategic plan. There are aspects that you have already identified within that will be borrowed for your STI strategy from your strategic plan, that harmonization to ensure, for example, your strategic plan will talk of key strategic issues. And again, when you canvas those strategic issues again within your strategic plan, you realize that as you develop your STI strategy, still you have issues that you need to address for actualization. Performance contracting is the platform in which we are doing all this, so we must get it right. And this is why I was saying, and today being the Ministry and State Department, as you negotiate, as you develop your own PC guideline, I mean PC for the ministry, and more so for the State Department, then of course we must ensure inclusion of STI as an indicator. Then again, we have an opportunity as a ministry, as a State Department, to negotiate with our sagas, with our downstream MDAs that are directly under either the ministry, of course, under the ministry and the respective State Department. Again, we have that wonderful opportunity to ensure that as we commit as State Department, as ministry, then these MDAs also, they are committed in the process, so that both we are able to actualize the intended purpose of STI mainstreaming. So performance contracting is a critical aspect, and because you normally get report from the State Department, would always would have a report for the respective ministry, a report that should collectively be able to capture what entirely is happening. So when you talk about STI mainstreaming with performance contracting as a platform, it's an enabler, it's a key enabler to help us actualize what is intended. We have quarterly reporting. This one you report on a cost on daily basis. GPCIS is the global reporting for performance contract. We have the evaluation itself, we have the self-evaluation. So basically, when we talk about mainstreaming, is to ensure within our processes. Mainstreaming is a continuous process. It's not just a one-off activity in itself. It is an activity that agrees with input-output relationship. Whatever input, whatever is coming out of a certain output, then that output becomes an input for another process, so that it's like quality, so that to ensure that within our entire process chain of plan, then we are able to ensure matter, science, technology, and innovation are clearly converged. And this is very important for effective and efficient implementation, for us to be able to attain the intended purpose, the mandate of the ministry, not only for the ministry, for the State Department, and even for the sagas. We must see ourselves in that wider picture so that we can be able to actualize the intended purpose. I've talked about monitoring and evaluation, but very, very important is the summation. You are now submitting, and there will be you'll be taken through the new reporting tool of MDAs that cost, make it simple and easy in terms of reporting. And it did, they handle very well. And I'm happy that the session today, you'll be shown how the improvement that has been made to ensure that collectively that reporting is efficient, is effective, is simplified. But of importance, we must ensure we comply with the guidelines. The guidelines are very clear that to report. This quarter is ending by this month. So by 15th of January, you're expected to report and give your report as it is expected. So basically, all the documents, all the information that you need, again, as a way to ensure effective and efficient implementation and in compliance with the 20th cycle guidelines that state clearly, the specialized agency will make it possible, will develop other means and ways to ensure that MDAs are able to effectively and efficiently report and ensure that they comply and implement smoothly this indicator. NACOST has given you, if you go to their website, and I encourage you to visit their website, you'll find all the information that you want in relation to this indicator. In fact, among all specialized agencies, I think they have done very well to ensure that they provide you with all the necessary information. They have automated reporting in itself as a process to simplify the process, to ensure efficiency and effectiveness, and of course, ensure that also you enjoy the process so that at the end of it all, you are able to, all of us are able to attain the intended objectives. So that is taken care of. What are some of the challenges in this indicator? Basically, that's MDAs normally, or that we have come across, is low budgetary allocation. Remember, one of the commitment is 2%, but we have actually realized sometimes, and this is why it is very, very important as ministry, because the MDAs basically, or the sagas below you, basically negotiate with you as within their PCs, from their budget and from the other activities that they put in their PCs. You realize that when we look at the broader aspect of research, science, technology, and innovation, actually there is a lot of expenditure. One, we must show the commitment that indeed we are working towards at least 2%. We are able to ensure that that budget, as we negotiate with MDs, as we negotiate your own budget with the treasury, because you look at MTP4, it is very clear for us to develop as a country, then at least we must ensure at least 2% of our budgetary allocation goes to research, science, technology, and innovation. And this is, again, one of the activity when you come to reporting for the indicator. So we should be broad. We should take those measures to ensure that indeed we are able to actualize this. We are able to ensure that as ministries, we work. We are not saying 2%, but at least 2%. So basically, that's an area we need to confront. That's an area that we need to address and ensure that we are able to attain, because that's the aspiration of MTP4. That's the aspiration of Vision 2030, because STI mainstreaming, STI, research, science, technology, innovation is an enabler. Poor and steady funding, again, is an issue that comes across inadequate infrastructure. Basically, what we are saying is that we need one of the first, if you look at the PC, the first indicator is financial stewardship. So as we negotiate, as we go through financial stewardship, because we have agreed that research, science, technology, innovation is a key enabler for us to attain our aspiration as a country, as a nation, as a state department, we need to ensure that is taken care of. Some of the key successes: formation of STI. NACOST has ensured there is STI mainstreaming team, and that's why also you are being encouraged as you appoint the focal person and champions, then you form a committee. You form an STI mainstreaming committee that ideally is supposed to help implementation. This has been with us since 18th cycle, 2021, 2022 up to now, and of course it helps you have an effective and efficient implementation. Key point of implementation, and this again point of experience that we need to share amongst ourselves, is of course you should ensure effective response, feedback, implementation. You realize after you report, NACOST will always give you certain feedback, and even yourself in the process of implementing, you'll always be getting certain feedback within the implementation process. Ensure that, as we said, those lessons we are able to learn, we are able to input them, we are able to implement them so that they can improve our process. Ensure quarterly and annual MDAs report. Again, once analysis is done, you expecting as an MDA to implement, as a ministry, as a state department, to implement those recommendations. Not only that, but also ensure that internally you review your performance on quarterly basis. You look at it, you develop a shanty and a roadmap for it, so that continuously you are able to implement what is expected. Ensure continuous capacity building. Again, you can participate like what is happening here. or probably you can always request. It can be demand-driven, you request, and that will be done. So again, of critical, I've talked about simplifying reporting process to infuse efficiency and effectiveness, and this will be shared. This is just a summary of 2022-2023, how it happened. There were around 273 MDAs. And again, this is just a pictorial reflection of the same. The point here is that there have been a huge improvement, having 273, that was last year. And as I said, we started from 18th cycle. We started from 18th cycle implementation. We did 19th cycle. Now we are in 20th cycle. As you can see, there is that deepening. There is that increase in number of MDAs that want to be part and parcel of this process. So basically, my intention and purpose of this presentation was basically to trigger you. One, we look at what we have been doing as we submitted our first quarter. We already in second quarter. What can we do differently in our second quarter so that you are able to improve? Again, what are the best lessons can we learn? What is the value proposition of implementing this? What is it? I started by looking back at Vision 2030, MTP4, better. And all these speak one thing, that research, science, technology, and innovation is critical for us to move forward as a country. The fourth one, as I conclude, is that what's the role of the ministry and the State Department in ensuring effective and efficient implementation of this indicator? As I said, you have a coordination role. Not only are you implementing it as a ministry, but also to ensure that across, as you formulate your STI strategies, then you ensure that as whatever you are committing, one of the things you need to commit is that overall mandate that you have and coordination aspect to your sagas and other players who are around you, who are supposed to help you attain your sector plan, who are supposed to help you attain your STI strategy, for example, or attain the implementation of the ministry or State Department agenda and mandate. So basically, those are the key areas. Those are the areas we need to look at. And the last one is, how do we report? How do we ensure that effectively and efficiently through the focal person and champions that collectively we are able to deliver on this mandate for the ministry, for the State Department, and for our nation as a country. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. You can put in case of any question, you can use the chat. We shall respond to it. But still, we'll have at a particular point, we'll have a plenary. We'll be able to take you a few questions here and there. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Back to Chair.
Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you, Javan, for that insight presentation in terms of the overview of this indicator, what is required. And again, as he has ended, it is meant to help us articulate how to undertake this role and what we need to do going forward. To accommodate our program, because our Director General will come later, what we had as an overview of our STI ecosystem, I would seek your indulgence at this point. We bring forward the discussion on just the overview in terms of the template, the STI strategy template. Again, this is to note that we are having a number of you attending for the first time, and purposely this is meant to bring you up to speed, and we can have that discussion. How do we help you to implement this? So allow me to just take a few minutes so that we can discuss the implementation, the science, technology, and innovation strategy, the way of the template. So that before we break for the health break, we'll be able to have covered what was meant for the morning session, other than that small change in terms of the order of presentation. Just a minute so that I'm able to share the screen. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, again, welcome for this session. I'll be brief because, again, one of the key element of this performance indicator is for us to try and institutionalize what we are calling STI mainstreaming. How do we do this? One of our best strategy that we are proposing to you as our key stakeholder in this is for each institution, the requirement for each institution to develop the science, technology, and innovation strategy. Again, in your own language and how you're able to articulate from your mandate from the corner that you sit, and you support this. So in the brief, what I just wanted to share with you is that bring you up to speed, where we're able to understand where we are coming from. In this country, we have this regulatory framework that governs the research, science, technology, and innovation. And this is the Science, Technology, and Innovation Act of 2013. Because that was saying, so that I'm able to paint that bigger picture, this is a national agenda. Again, and we are using performance contract platform to do that. So this piece of legislation was enacted for majorly these three purposes that I'm sharing. And I will not dwell with the first and second, but mainly I wanted us to discuss the reason we are here as a country is because one of the main purpose of the Science, Technology, and Innovation Act was to entrench science, technology, and innovation in our national production system. Exactly what we are doing. And that's why we are really glad to have this conversation today, and more so with our ministries, state departments, because these are the organs that the government can only articulate this agenda through you. We are not able to do this. This is what the stakeholders wanted to do, but for the obvious reason that the role of science, technology, and innovation in our economy is that important. So we have this law that had this aspiration. So if that was the case, then the science, technology, and innovation mainstreaming has a home in the law, and that's why it is finding its way into the performance contract platform because of that importance. And of course, globally, we have seen the role of science, technology, and innovation, how countries that have been able to treat this sector the way it deserves, how they were able to really progress rapidly. And I'm saying this is important as a country because we are paying the attention that it deserves. And we are very happy that today we are speaking to the ministries. This can only happen through the ministries that the government has put in place. So NACOST is a key partner with you, partnering with you to make sure that what the stakeholders in this country wanted to attain by having that aspiration of entrenching science, technology, and innovation in our programs and activities is that mandate. We are able to articulate that, we are able to walk the journey together, and that is the purpose why we are here. So I just wanted to paint that picture so that from what I had said in the morning, this is a national agenda, so that we can see where we are coming from that piece of legislation. My colleague has just shared this requirement because, again, we are very grateful that this performance contract indicator, it is in the PC. And then as he had articulated well, this year we had committed, or the sub-indicators that are in there are those three. But I just wanted to mention the first one. And more so, for the benefit of those who are attending for the first time, as ministries, as state department, you are required to develop STI mainstreaming strategy for your ministries, for your state department. That is a key requirement for this calendar year or this financial year. And that's why we are here, so that I'm able just to paint a picture, the journey we can walk together. I know this moment, these few minutes, we are not able to develop that, but what I'll just share is what are the requirements, what would be the journey, what would be like your requirements. But NACOST is out here to help you walk this journey, so that this is just to make it simpler for you. So you are required to develop STI mainstreaming strategy. Those who have already developed, yes, because they are here, and I'm glad to see colleagues who are here this morning with us who have already developed that. So it's an important aspect for you because you are implementing your STI strategy. Again, the discussion is also very valid for you as well. So that's the main discussion we would want to take a few minutes to do that. But why are you saying STI strategy? It is very important for us to see how to institutionalize this. And I was saying this is important for us, for institutions, to use their own language, to use their own, from their mandate, from their functions, that you can put into perspective. This is a sub-strategy, because you do have your strategic plan that you have already articulated, the bigger plan that the ministries want to do, but we are introducing this as a sub-strategy that to really help to categorize or to help you even articulate and achieve some of your bigger aspiration in the strategy plan. So we are saying this is a tool to help us to institutionalize this. Remember the STI law that had that aspiration to entrench science, technology, and innovation in our policies, in our production system, in our activities, in our program. So this is now articulated so well because you do it from your own perspective, from your own mandate, guided by your strategic plan, using your own language. So that way I think this is an implementation framework or more of action plan that you need to take. And that's why I'm saying this is a very important tool for you to have it. For those of you who are yet to walk this journey, again, this is for you so that we are able to have this conversation. What do you need to do? We will walk that journey with you together. It is not that difficult. And again, it's the Costy's role to help you articulate this in the best way that you are able to speak from your own language. Just to paint this picture so that at least we can agree we are headed somewhere. My colleague had shared this. This is just a snapshot of what we were able to have last financial year. 278 and 73 different institutions, state corporations, universities, tertiary institutions, TVET, all that, research institutions. But I want to really focus on the ministries because this is the conversation we really need to have because we only have about 6 ministries that are on board. We are glad this year this number has changed, so these figures will no longer be that. So all of the ministries are coming now on board. Why? Because again, we are breaking it down for us to understand in our own language, in our own space. What are we saying? Because STI mainstreaming is not for research institutions. Because we have always had that misconception. We are not talking about a research mainstreaming. It's talking the broader concept, the whole ecosystem, and each and every ministry has a role to play in this. So we are really glad that you spared your time here. We can have this discussion. We can increase this number. We are looking forward to have all the ministries by the end of this financial year on board, and we will walk that journey together with you, and we will try to make it easy for you, break it down, and be able to help you articulate what are we saying. It's a national agenda. So out of this 270 something plus, we still have about 30% who are still yet to develop their institutional STI strategy. Why? There's nothing wrong with that. The commitment is there. So we are walking down this journey together. And the why I'm spending these minutes here with you is that we are able to increase this number. Even as you are coming on board, you're coming on board at the right time. So again, that's the message that we want to pass. But this is a very good indicator, has a good commitment that our institutions are able to embrace and appreciate the role of science, technology, and innovation across our programs. So this is a picture by last financial year. This picture will be different by the end of this financial year, courtesy of your participation and the more reason you are here this morning. So allow me just to do a quick rundown in terms of the overview of this template. And again, why are we saying it's a template? Because of course, you people, you've been doing your different strategies, there are planners here, those economists here. This has been your business all along. But what we are saying is that for STI strategy, we just done a simple template, a 5-chapter document, so that for uniformity purpose, and for obvious reason that we want to make it simple, straightforward, and direct. And that's why I was saying using your own language. All we are doing is to give you a template that will have that uniformity across the board. So I'll take 10-15 minutes just to paint this picture. Again, the colleagues, for those of you who have already developed these, just appreciate so that you are able to bring up to speed those who are joining for the first time. So when we are saying science, technology, and innovation template, this is a 5-chapter document that we want to look at it. Chapter 1, just talking about the introduction. And again, introduction, you're only giving your historical background, your legal framework, your mandates, functions. So straightforward info that you do have. You can only write that chapter best because you are the expert there, but you just want to highlight around other issues of STI related. So we are strictly biased to science, technology, and innovation. Chapter 1, just introduction. It could be a 10, 20, or 100-page document, just depending on how you're able to articulate your issues. Chapter 2 of this template, what we are inviting our institution to do, this morning we are inviting our state department, our ministries to do, is chapter 2 is to do the situational analysis. And this is a situational analysis of looking inward, because we are using SWOT, the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat. This is just an internal ecosystem. We are going to the way of the pastel with the external environment, but you look at yourself internally with a clear bias eye or less of science, technology, and innovation. What are your strengths insofar as STI is concerned? What are your weaknesses insofar as STI is concerned? And also, what are your threats and weaknesses? Why? Because chapter 3, we are going to develop the strategies, and you have an opportunity. That's why I was saying this is a document that should be able to sell across your authorities, because you use this to help yourself articulate your weaknesses, and you have an opportunity to deploy science, technology, and innovation interventions that are able to help you articulate this. So chapter 2, just look at yourself internally. What are your strengths? What are your opportunities? The threat and the weaknesses, you have an opportunity to craft some strategies. So that is chapter 2. And I was saying, this is just a template. We may not be able to develop it here, and we will walk that journey together. Chapter 3, just look at the whole picture, the strategic orientation, because this document has to have a specific perspective. Again, this is clearly guided by your strategic plan, the vision, mission, core values, as they are in your strategic plan. This document will not be seeking to or requesting you to develop anything new other than that, because it has to be guided by your bigger plan. Remember, I'm saying this is a sub-strategy. What will be your guiding principles in there? Because again, this document has to speak the bigger picture. So far as the Vision 2030, everybody is contributing to that. The regional agenda, how is it aligned with all other policies within? So that's what we are saying. This document, it is not in a vacuum. It is we're going to do it. This document guided by those principles, but of course guided by your bigger picture and your bigger strategy. But the more important thing, and what we have agreed as a country that we could have this conversation is, we need to have specific strategic issues that are strategic, they are important for us as a country, and for us as our ministries, for our state department. So NACOST is giving this menu with these 8 strategic issues that will guide you in developing your STI strategy. 1, human resource development, infrastructure for STI, because we are talking about science, technology, innovation. the infrastructure there becomes very important. And I'm saying this because as a country, we have agreed these are specific issues, strategic issue for the country, strategic issue for State Department, for the ministries, for our state corporations. These are important, depending from your mandate, how we want to deal with these issues of funding, increasing funding for research, science, technology, and innovation. So we want you to craft strategies, how you want to do that, help us craft that. The issues of partnership and collaboration, again, that is very important, even for a country. We are continuously looking out forward to have partners that we can work for mutual benefit. We can be able to work that journey together. So here, what we are asking you as ministries, State Department, what are your strategic issues? What will be your strategies insofar as to strengthen the issues of partnership in matters to do with science, technology, and innovation? Tech development, transfer, and diffusion. And this is very important, and that's why my colleague will be joining here to really put more emphasis there. Insofar as when we are in technology development, the intellectual property aspect comes in so handy. So we are saying the tech development, the transfers, and all these innovations, it is an important aspect. So as ministries, you are invited to have your strategies around them. How do you take this agenda forward? STI advocacy and awareness is another strategic issue that we are putting forward. Just like we are doing here, what we are doing here is partly to raise this awareness that science, technology, and innovation is that important for the country, for our institution, for our State Department. Issues of inclusivity, gender mainstreaming, and all these other inclusivity aspects is another strategic issue as a country that we feel. Issues of education, training, and research. Very broad area, very important area. But again, as State Department, from your perspective, could be about the issues of training, even internally. How do you address research? For those Ministry of Education, I'm glad you're here. The issues of education, how do we articulate those things going forward in this rapidly changing world? So these are the 8 strategic issues that we have agreed that as a commission that we can put forward for you to pick these, put in your own language, how do you want to address these 8 strategic issues? But we are not limiting you, but for the purpose of performance contract, we are providing these for the country. So I just wanted to pay more attention to this because this is the agenda that we should be able to have, and we should be able to discuss around that. So what follows is just and the layout. How do we want to do this? We may not want to pay much attention to this. For those who have already walked the journey, you have already articulated your priorities in terms of the strategy. How do you want to look at this? But the most important thing is the strategic issue that we are looking at: human resource, infrastructure. What will be your objectives around there? The column on my extreme right, it should be you have an opportunity to develop the strategies for your ministries, for your State Department. How do you want to articulate the issues of human resource? How do you want to articulate the issues of infrastructure? And we have said all these are important issues for ourselves. The issues of funding. What will be your objective? Because you have to set your objectives around that. How do you want to address the issues of funding, increasing investment? Because we have said how we treat this subsector, science, technology, and innovation sector as a country, it is important. It will determine how we are able to rapidly progress or stagnate or be left behind all these the revolutions that are coming in. So we are asking, you have an opportunity to craft your strategy. How do you want to treat that aspect? We in this, the Science, Technology, and Innovation Law Act of 2013, we have a commitment as a country that we should set aside at least 2% of our GDP for that aspect. That was a national aspiration. We are not yet there. But as the ministry, State Department, what would be your commitment around that journey as we work together? Because we need to have a conversation there. And that's why I was saying this, you do it in your own language, because again, we are asking you to commit what you are able to do, guided by your mandate and your strategy. STI advocacy, again, this is the issues of raising awareness. Example, what will be your strategies to raise the awareness? As NACOSTI, this is one of the strategies that we are using for capacity building and also creating that awareness. But as State Department, as ministries, you are invited to have that opportunity to craft. Education, training, and research. Again, what we have there on the screen is they're just examples. You craft what is specific to you because of your specific mandate. Remember chapter 1, we said you are highlighting your mandate and your strategic plan is guiding you. So again, all those broad issues, what will be your commitment around those issues? Technology development, what will be your strategy around that? And what will be your specific objective? Because of course, you have to set something that are smart. We are inviting you to do an institutional strategy for either 3, 5 years. Preferably if it runs the same period with your strategy plan. Because we say that this is a document that will be able to catalyze some of the things that you set in there. So in around about technology development, transfer, and diffusion, what do you want to do as ministry? We have an opportunity to make right what has always been ailing our creativity around there, promoting the issues of commercialization around there, using all that. Again, look at it from your mandate, not from anybody else's corner. The issues of collaboration, we have said that one, institution, countries, even at individual level, we always constantly look out for partnership. So what we are saying, what will be your objective to strengthen partnerships? What will be the strategies? These strategies are things that are doable within 3, 4, 5 years. What are you able to do that? Gender mainstreaming, we are just looking about the issues of inclusivity. What do you want to do around those aspects? So chapter 3 articulate those 8 strategic issues that will help you develop your institutional STI strategy that speaks to your mandate, that is guided by your plan and your budget. Okay? So chapter 4 of this document, remember I said it's just a 5-chapter document. Chapter 4 is just a straightforward, it's just implementation matrix. And implementation matrix, just like in your strategic plans, you always have this chapter, very important because it's a tool to help you measure that what you committed, you're able to run the same, you're able to measure, you're able to do that. And that's why we are saying all the strategies that you have crafted in chapter 3, you put them into these in the same order. Strategic issue, what will be your strategy, and then exactly what will be the expected results. And of course, these are the immediate outputs that you're able to get around there. What will be your performance indicator? How do you measure what you commit to do? What will be the means of verification and the estimated cost? That is the journey we are saying that we need to work with you to develop this and to articulate this, but it is important we are saying it from your own perspective, in terms of mandate, in terms of priority, and in terms of your budget and the focus. For all the 8 strategic issues, we just use that format. So chapter 4 is just an implementation matrix, just a copy and paste of what you also have in your strategic plans, how you're able to measure you're doing that. Chapter 5, the last chapter, is the monitoring and evaluation. And again, this, we are not reinventing the wheel. We are only asking you, while doing this document, just be guided by your documented procedures. Because again, you have your own internal procedures. How do you really monitor your implementation? Your QMS, how they articulate all these issues. So this is not reinventing the wheel, but just customizing what you have documented internally. How do you monitor? How do you report? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? Is it annually? Those kind of things. And then how do you review this strategy document? Strategy plans, mid-term, end-term, Those are the things. So those are the things that you put in there. A very brief chapter and a very specific one and a very important one, because to identify the roles. Because again, they always indicate that what can be measured can be done. So this is an instrument for you to internally monitor yourselves, because these are commitments that we are saying are important for the ministry and for the country. So far, that is the the match we are talking about as a template for developing institutional science, technology, and innovation strategy. That is a requirement at the performance contract, one of the keys, because either you are joining for the first time, you are committed to develop, or if you have already developed, you are committed to implement what you had already committed in that document. So in a nutshell, I just wanted to share that. Sorry, colleagues, apologies for those who have walked this journey before. For those who are coming on board for the first time, that's a very important document that will help us as we are discussing this discussion of institutional or mainstreaming or institutionalizing science, technology, and innovation in our programs. This is one of the important tools that we need to have. Thank you so much. I thought I would take those few minutes and I share that so that we are always on standby to help you walk that journey, articulate that. But again, it's a document that where you are the experts, because you do it from your own end and from your own language, aided by your own mandates and functions. So thank you so much for that. I thought that will form part of our morning session. Yes, so that we are able to, again, this is around 10:30. We can earn our health break at that point. Also, what we are continuously asking you is to have, if all those queries, comments, your worries, your suggestions, and your questions, if you could put them on the chat Q&A session. Our panelists will be always on standby to respond to your concern, to your issues, and also give us suggestions. Because again, as today I'm saying, we are speaking today to our mother, Ministries. Anything will happen without yourselves, and that's why we are starting with yourselves. Because before you go to the sagas and the research institution, we really wanted to speak to the main group that will be able to be the driver of these agendas. So, ladies and gentlemen, please share your comments, share your question, and also share your suggestions with us. Seeking your indulgence, we wanted us to take 15 minutes break. We can be able to stretch, and then we quickly convene at what time? 10:45. It's exactly 10:30, so we reconvene at 10:45, and then we are able to go into the reporting tools. So that again, what I had started, this was your comment, this was your, in fact, your command that first revise the reporting tools, which you have done and which you share at 10:45. Great, thank you so much. Let's take that health break. Okay.
Hello, good morning. Hope I'm audible. My name is Cyrus Kamau. I'll take you through this third session of PC mainstreaming training. So I'll deal with the reporting aspect of this PC indicator. And I know one of the key aspects that we have been training before. We have been training on using Excel sheets. So one of the areas that we are currently working on and in good progress to that is that we want to automate the reporting process. So currently we are working on a portal that will allow you to submit your details, and we are just at the tail end. We are almost 85% done. So there are some aspects that we will do in the course of this week to complete. So we hope the portal will be complete in between now and the new year. So we'll share with you individual credentials. We have not changed much, so we still have the credentials that we have shared with you, but we'll share with you the credentials to log in and be able to access. So the purpose of today's training is to take you through this indicator and technically to ensure that possibly you're able to see the overview, and possibly if you have any questions or any improvements that you can do to the indicator, you're able to bring us into press. So the tool is under what you're calling Nacosti, and you are going to have such a login process. So you give you a user ID and a password, which you'll be able to log in. And once you log in, you're able to go to the portal. So the portal captures the key aspects of the table. So we have tried to maintain the rhythm as simpler as it was before. So we have the MDA profile, which provides the initial data. These are data that as stakeholders, you have said is repetitive, and you possibly want it to be once off. So once you're able to put the data is once off, and possibly you don't have to do it quarterly. So you are left with submitting the reports that is maybe possibly going to deal with the quarterly aspects. So on the NDA profile, you're able to give the institution name, category, your ID, then some of the key aspects that you'd want to upload was like the STI streaming work plan, the documentary evidence for research on innovation and technology outputs, then policies. If you have already existing policies like the IP policy and the research policy, you are able to upload. And once you're able to upload that, you update. From there, you go to the submission of the reports. So the submission of report will deal with the same aspects that we had earlier. You have the financial year that is current, which is 23-24. And if you're dealing with quarter one reporting, which is part of the data that we have here, is quarter one reporting. Then you have the institutional details, which you're saying is part of the general information, the institutional name, the title. If it's a state department, then you're able to say which state department, the focal person, the name of the focal person, appointment letter, STA champions, and if you have developed the policy and the research policy as such questions. So one of the key aspects is to deal with international implementation of obligations, where you're able to say yes or no. So we said except for a few agencies that are dealing with the reporting on this, majority of them, including most of the state departments and ministries, they are not having this aspect. So if you're able to put that data on, you're able to click save and continue. So you go to step 2 here above, it deals with the establishment. You're able to indicate the number of staff. So if it's a state department has an approved staff of 600, indicate the number of staff in posts. So if that state department has already 500, because of maybe other reasons like retirement and other courses that would have made not to be in full capacity, those who are offering institutional core mandate. So if it's in education and possibly you're dealing with State Department of Higher Research, Higher Education and Research, then you may be able to say how many out of these 600 are dealing with the activities of the State Department in terms of the core mandate of that State Department. The total number of INPO staff who are non-Kenyans, in most cases, you may find that you have none, but in case you have an exchange program or you have staff who are on secondment or such cases, then you're able to put in. Note these ones are non-Kenyans. Yeah? They're saying they are external, maybe technical staff coming in. And the number of staff offering the core mandate. So if you have zero, possibly you also not have a number within the ministry or the State Department. Then this one will allow you to populate. Once you're able to populate, you're able to get the number of staff. You can be able to add the number of staff, maybe the title and the designation, principal secretary. The establishment has one, the current number of principal secretaries is there. You're able to save. And you're able to have that data populated as you go. So if you have another entry you want to do, maybe you have a position of secretary education, secretary university education, secretary, this position, then directors, deputy directors, and the growth continues within that range as you continue to populate. So as you're able to populate, you're also able to go to, once you're able to fill the entire, you can save and continue. It takes you to step 3. You're able to fill the research science project involved with research capacity. The human resource capacity is based on those 5 fields that you had in the table: field of study, level of study, gender, big age bracket, larger or lower than 50. Then you have any other options. And you can be able to click add. Maybe you're saying in this State Department, there is humanities and social sciences, level of study, there is a PhD, gender, male or female, age brackets. Maybe you have 3 members of staff that fall under that age bracket. Below 50, maybe there are 5, and you're able to save. So it's similar to the table that you have been doing previously, and you can populate that entry as you go down. And that entry will be saved as you continue to enter within that entry. Then under section A, within the equipment that you have, if you have any equipment as a State Department or a ministry, you're able to add, and you're able to say what kind of equipment it is. Maybe you have high performance computing. It was installed within the State Department of Research. Maybe a previous year, you can go back to the previous years. If you have to select a date, location, is it within the ministry headquarters? Maybe you can say Italy House. Cost of the equipment was 50 million. It's used to process big data. And working condition, yes. If it is not in working condition, then you can be able to state that. Then that equipment will be added within that entry. And you can have as many entries as you would want to enter. Then you can go down, save and continue if you're finished with that entry. Then you have STI expenditure. This is expenditure that you spend on research, science, and technology activities. You can add, there's an add button. Then you can specify if you have appropriations in aid, then this one will not have a partner because you're saying it's appropriation in aid coming from the exchequer. Then you have your total budget. Maybe it's 200 million for the State Department. Then total budget that you have for the recurrent budget. Then for this quarter, possibly it's a quarter amount, which is possibly 12,500,000. Then if you have any remarks, you can say maybe for any remarks that you'd have to put, maybe you have the budgets or you have the sum approved. If there is no comment, you can put none, then you click save. So, and you can continue with that adding as you continue to add the entries. So after you do the entries, you can click save and continue. You go to collaborative and STI programs. If you have any programs that you are undertaking, you can name the name of the project or program. Maybe you have the Newton Fund program, the principal investigator. Maybe you can say is a director. DRST. Then you have the dates when that project began. You can have the end date when you anticipate that that project is for 3 years up to 2026. Maybe June, then you select the date which is supposed to end. Then the status of completion, you can only earn 10% if it began this year. Then source of funding, if it is GOK, you can say out of this GOK is funding. If it's a matching fund, maybe 100 million. Then other sources of funds. So it's been funded from A&A, then you can say that's amount. Then if it's sourced by a development partner, maybe you have the UK government funding. Maybe they're also putting into place 500 million. If there's a private sector fund, you can put. If there's no private sector fund, if the rest are not within that, then indicate whether it's a public or private sector. It can be both. So you can say it's public sector because it's also given from the exchequer of that country in terms of funding. Then you're able to click save. And you're able to save and continue. Then you have outputs. These are research outputs. You can say what kind of research outputs you have been able to do. There are all these categories that are given here. Maybe one of the research outputs you have been able to do is to have an MOU. You have 2 MOUs that you have been able to do this quarter. Within which area? Humanities and social sciences. Then remarks. These ones are about financing higher education. That you're able to click. Then as much as other projects that you have, you can click add and they will be tabulated in that table below. So once you're through with the adding, you can save and continue. Then you have dissemination mode. Maybe you could have an activity that's dealing with dissemination. The same activities that were in the Excel table are the ones that are here. You can say you have developed a policy brief and possibly details of the activity is research in higher education. If there were 2 or 3, you can specify what the details are. So if it's only one, you can specify there is only one policy brief developed. Then you can say awaiting publication if there are any comments. Or awaiting dissemination. Those already are published documents. Then you click save. And you're able to move now to dissemination activities. You can save and continue. Then under dissemination activities, you can say what activities of dissemination you intend to do. Sorry, we have already talked about dissemination. Then you have international obligations. We said most ministries and state departments do not have an activity that's dealing with this. But for most agencies that deal with this dissemination, they're able to add the same way we are adding what kind of microorganisms. Then at the end of the day, you can have a review which will help you to submit. You have the letter for submitting quarterly reports from the accounting officer. So you can choose here, attach. Then if you have any comments concerning this, you can put there. And after that, you're able to submit your report. Yeah, so at that point, you're able to have your report being able to be submitted based on the status of that. As I said, this one is work in progress. It's something that is working, and we are also using the same model to ensure that the process is simplified, and possibly where you don't need to repeat data like the general data, the profile data. You just enter it at the beginning of the quarter and it continues, or at the initial entry into the reporting indicator. After that, the whole process is continued. So there are still some aspects of improvement. We believe by Q2 reporting of 1st January, you have the whole aspect done. We hope to share the passwords by then at the beginning of the next quarter. So at least you're able to validate your data, you're able to key in your data, and any aspects that you'd want to work with that, you're able to do it and finish. So with that, I think I'm able to say that's the simplified process to which the tool is able. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Cyrus, for sharing this. And again, as I have said, this was one of our commitments that we are able to simplify this. And as my colleague Cyrus has indicated, this makes work so easy. Instead of us always repeating the same data. Once you upload it, there was always what you don't upload in Q1 and it remained the same. So there will not be the repetitive processes that you had requested, that we avoid that, and which we have committed to do that. Okay, quickly, and I think thank you, distinguished participant for that. This is very important for us to have that. I think at this moment we are now privileged to have the Director General Nakosti, Professor Wataoyawa, who is logging in. This is the presentation we had said we're going to push it to 11, exactly at 11. Distinguished participant, we will have this opportunity to have a feel of what the Director General has for us in terms of the STI, the regulatory framework, the high-level policy issues. Professor, we have just finished the morning sessions, and I think for now we are also inviting our dear participant in the question and answer session that all the issues that you need articulated, you need responded, kindly feel free, continue registering them. We really do appreciate to have you this morning. And if agreeable, I think at this moment we will give Professor Wataoyawa, the Director General Nakosti, the opportunity to share with us the bigger picture in terms of the STI regulatory framework, which is very important for us to put the whole thing into the perspective. Prof, if you are ready, we are now ready to give you the opportunity. Again, this morning we have the State Department and the ministries. Our key ministries are represented, and this is one of the core team that we do have around for us to articulate this national agenda. So again, we are speaking to one of the most important segment in the country. So, Prof, I think it is a good opportunity to have you take the floor.
Can you hear me, David?
Yes, Prof, I can hear you.
Thank you very much. Allow me first to thank our distinguished participants, senior officers from state departments, for sparing their time to be with us today. It's not so often that we engage in such kind of discussion, but we're indeed very pleased. We are seeing there over 52, over 50 participants. Considering the number of state departments, I think that is a very good turnout. I will try to share my screen if you can alert me if it's visible. Is it visible?
Yes, it's visible. You can put in presentation mode.
Yes, that's what I'm trying. Yes, is it in presentation mode now?
Yes, now it's okay.
Yes, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Once more, allow me to thank you for sharing your time. This is quite an important engagement since the government introduced this performance contract indicator into the PC for MDAs. The topic I've chosen, this is a little bit different from what my colleagues have been presenting, is on leveraging science, technology, and innovation for national prosperity and public good. And I just want to state from the onset that at this particular point in time, matters science, technology, and innovation, what we are calling STI or what we are calling RSTI, you add the research, is now regarded at very high levels of the as a game changer towards the realization of SDGs. At national level, the government is betting on STI in deepening the trust and strengthening public confidence in government. And this one I've just quoted a recent statement by none other than His Excellency the President, who has taken matters of innovation to another level in this country. And therefore, we don't ride on that platform that we have been given. I think the country might not go very far, but it's a great opportunity, a grand opportunity for those of you who are in this sector. Again, as you may know, science, technology, innovation cuts across, is cross-cutting issue, and that's why all MDS are involved. Whether you are a social scientist, whichever field, I don't think there's any field which doesn't involve STI. I also, from the onset, wanted to just inform that as we undertake this target, that STI has direct bearing not only on national development, not on national security. So we believe the ministries that are involved in national security, defending our country, like the Minister of Defense, Foreign Affairs, Minister of Interior, this is the game changer that you need to have a competitive advantage as you compete globally. Having said that, from the African perspective, the big question in a nutshell, because I've quite a number of slides, so I'll skip some of them. I think we'll provide these slides at the end of this meeting. I'll skip these are standard. And for those of you who are here for the second or third time, allow me to repeat some of them for the sake of those who are attending for the first time. The bigger question is always one very important question, that Africa has so many resources, but why do we lack? Like, we have land which is arable compared to maybe the Europeans and so forth. We don't have the 4 seasons where there are winters which are frozen. We have either the rainy or the dry season. But the question, or what is being noted, that Africa contributes just 2% of the world research output. We account for only 1.3% of research spending, and we produce only 0.1% of all the patents in the world. Patents have direct bearing on economic development, because when you patent, it means you are claiming something. You are claiming a product, you are claiming a service, like the M-Pesa service, for example. So if we do not patent, it means we have so much, but it doesn't belong to us. Somebody else is using them. And what is being said now is that we have not deliberately invested on science or research, science, technology, innovation, as other countries have done. But the time is now. Probably the time for Africa and Kenya is now. I've just shown, David, I hope online. Sometimes the internet plays games, so when I'm not audible, please alert me. I've just picked out data 3 years ago of countries that have invested on research. The chart is on the gross domestic spending on R&D as a percent of the GDP. And you can see Israel is the highest, small country, small population, but they've invested heavily on R&D, spending almost 5% of their GDP on R&D. Then South Korea, which is currently ranked as the most technologically advanced country. Again, you have seen they're spending around 4.5% of their GDP on R&D. Japan, US, China, and so forth. So these were deliberate investments that they made. And in the process, not only did they move economically up, they became leaders, whether from the security angle, whether from public safety angle. They became leaders in literally all the frontiers of humanity. So this is just something which we thought we could share with senior government officers who are there. Some of you may be decision makers, that when you bring in STI at the middle of the work that you do, or in the middle of the ministry, we're almost certain you can never go wrong. I also want just to inform that what we are doing is not out of the blues. It is captured in the Constitution, which emphasizes the importance of science and technology in knowledge-based economic development of the country. The Constitution further emphasizes on the recognition of indigenous innovations and technologies. That part of the Constitution has not been taken up. We have not really invested on indigenous inventions and technologies, but where the world is going, I'm sure we'll make a full circle and go back there. So again, the Ministries and State Department handling this, I know, like NMK, National Museums of Kenya, and the Ministry and the Parent Ministry are so much saved on this matter, but we are yet to see well-documented, formalized inventions that are coming out of indigenous technology. So again, Vision 2030 is fully anchored on STI, and that has been said, so I don't have to belabor that. But allow me just to quote some of the statements that His Excellency has made, which is really a policy directive on matters of science, technology, and innovation. These are some of the statements which he said before he became the president, some years back. It was almost like very futuristic, and this was in 2015. David, I hope I'm there. You're there?
Yes, Prof, you're there.
Yes, so he made some statements which literally are policy statements for the current government. We are living in a new age, an age of science, technology, innovation. The children under your care must compete. That word, the age of science and technology, is literally STI mainstreaming. That the things that we do, the things that we do in the office, the things that we do in our homes, the things that we do as a country are literally connected to science, technology, innovation. And we saw that during the COVID pandemic. It became really a matter of science, technology, innovation. Our lives were at stake. Our security was at stake. So many things were at stake, where we are saying science and technology goes beyond. Again, in 2019, he said, we have to scale up our engagement with science, technology, and innovation space, especially, again, among our young generation. Scale up our engagement. STI mainstreaming is about scaling up that engagement with science, technology, and innovation. And he has gone ahead just to demonstrate that we really have to reorient ourselves. We really have to reimagine how we are going to do the government business. He says, and this is in October last year, that Africa must consciously place science at the center of its planning. It must increase funding for research and work. And I know the government intends to do that despite the limitations. But one other game changer that he has done is that in the Executive Order number 1 and also in Executive Order number 2, which came out this year, he established the Presidential Advisory Council on Science and Technology. I think the appointments have not been done. I think that is at a higher level, but this is going to be the equivalent of the National Economic and Social Council, the one chaired by Honorable Dr. Ndi. So this is how the government has escalated matters of science, technology, and innovation. And the call to each one of us, to me, yourself, and all of us, is that what is our contribution? What is our contribution towards this intention of the highest person in the country to demonstrate that this country is really at the top of matters, science, technology, and innovation? So much you have been hearing so much of ICT, and I'm pleased the Minister of ICT, the State Department of ICT and the Ministries is part of this conversation. They are right at the center of this. I think most of the visits that have gone out of the country has been ICT as the lead, and we are really pleased on that. I also want just to highlight, and this is just more of the emphasis, that things are moving very fast, and unless we ride on that space of the train that has left, as the horse has left the dock, then we might find ourselves a little bit late. Just, I think, 2 months ago, His Excellency again was chairing a forum, a high-level forum, the SDG Summit, where Kenya was chairing, was a co-moderator on dialogue number 3. And you can Google this. And we're talking of game changers and applying science, technology, innovation, and data for transformative action for SDGs was seen as one of the game changers. I quote one of the statements that His Excellency made, that the President has called on the international community to mobilize and direct resources. This, again, is our emphasis. We have limitation, but we cannot go far without deliberate investment. And we are saying when you invest in RSTI, it's not money that has thrown and is going. It is an investment. It's like planting a seed, which will come to harvest 10 times more in time to come. So these are the emphasis. Policy direction from the highest levels of government is directly connected to the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. And if you look at all those 5 areas, key pillars of bottom-up economic transformation agenda, agriculture, MSCs, look at this. This is science, technology, and innovation at its best. So what will be your contribution in this? We strongly believe that each state department, each ministry has its contribution to make based on its functions as captured in the, I think, the relevant executive order. And if you want to move fast, you figure out how to move in the shortest route, then deliberate investment in STI will be very key, and that is what you're strongly watching for. This came out very strongly during the COVID-19 pandemic. It was documented that countries that invested in small technologies, like the drones and whatever, were able to save very many lives. Countries like Singapore, like Malaysia, were able to save very many lives by using simple gadgets, using robots. Even we had robots in hospitals, like in Italy, when so many deaths were happening. Yesterday, as I was going through the internet, I found a very clear illustration in the website of the Ministry of Investments, Trade and Industry, the State Department for Investment Promotion. And they have captured, I think, based on MTP, I think MTP4, that STI is the 3rd listed enabler of Vision 2030 as we move in MTP4. And this is some of the documentation that is there, that STI is very key in raising investment across all the sectors. This is not us, as Nakos is saying, but one of our key ministries will do. This is, I think, a summary of what needs to happen in the next, I don't know, 4 or 5 years and so forth. But key to it, and part of it, one of the last bullet, which is talking of STI performance management framework. This is where STI mainstreaming is, where we have now to calculate and document what is Nakos's contribution to Kenya's global scope competitiveness, what is Nakos's contribution to the national prosperity of his people and for the public and so forth. It has been measured one way or another. Moving forward, again, allow me to just inform that STI mainstreaming did not just come out of the blue. This is the research statement from the Secretary General of the, no, this is not, that should be the next slide. This is now a resolution of the UN Economic and Social Council on the advice of the UN Conference on Trade and Development. They say that requesting countries to closely link science, technology, and innovation and strategies of sustainable development by prominently featuring capacity building in information and communication technologies. And again, I'm happy that the State Department of ICT is here, because there's a lot on ICT which could drive this country, could drive this economy and make a big difference. So this is at UN level. A recent report, again, I think this is just July, 3-4 months ago, the UN Secretary General's report on SDGs. It talked of how do you use that STI, and a key take home of STI mainstreaming is that we strongly encourage a whole of government approach. We strongly encourage a multi-sector approach. We strongly encourage an inter-agency approach in whatever dealings that we do. We discovered that agencies that we regulate, like we regulate KIRDI, we regulate CALRO, we regulate KEMRI, but when you ask them, ask CALRO, do you know what KEMRI does? They don't know, and vice versa. We are strongly encouraging a whole of government approach, as recommended strongly by the UN Secretary General. Also, he was encouraging the promotion of research, collaboration, open innovation, knowledge exchange, technology transfer, and capacity building. This is where our investments need to go. I'll move much faster now, having made those key introductory remarks, that the regulatory framework of the Science, Technology, and Innovation in Kenya is based on the Science, Technology, and Innovation Act. And that act was established for 3 purposes. I'll go straight away to purpose number 3. And purpose number 3 was to entrench science, technology, and innovation into the national production system and for connected purposes. I think this is the 3rd year we are doing this, and we have had to answer that question where some agencies felt that, or even state departments, that we are not part of this. Then the question will put to them, are you part of the national production system? If you are not, then the head of public service maybe might be able to excuse you from this STI mainstreaming. But if you are part of that national production system, then you are part of the STI sector in one way or another. Whether you're offering education, in whichever way you're doing, we strongly believe that STI is part of it. So the STI mainstreaming is captured right in the STI Act of 2013, and that gave us the mandate of coordinating STI mainstreaming in MDS based on that slide. Sorry. Yeah, if I move to the next slide, just to highlight another element which is coming during the 60th celebration by His Excellency the President at Embu. These are some of the statements they made. I like them because they simply make our life very simple. They give the guiding direction, and I think it must have been thought out by some eminent Kenyans. So he says, and this is what I was quoting in blue at the bottom. To this end, President Ruto said that he's strengthening public confidence in government. What will be your contribution to this? This is STI mainstreaming, and I'll move again faster. Countries around the world are now strongly investing. David, I'm still audible?
Yes, Prof. You still there?
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, I think countries around the world are leading in matters of science, technology, innovation. There might be countries that are fully developed, but even with our status, we need to embark on the first steps of getting ourselves to where they were, because they also started somewhere. And just to tell you very quickly, and these ones you can Google, these are not some things which are in some hidden place. You can Google. In 2021, the then Prime Minister of the UK, Boris Johnson, established a new National Science and Technology Council, which he chaired himself. Here was a Prime Minister chairing the National Science and Technology Council. What was the import of that? The import of that is that we escalated matters of science, technology, innovation to the highest levels of government. And the consequence of that there was an allocation of 2.27 trillion in that financial year of 2021-2022. So if you're looking for investment in science and technology, which will cut across and go to all ministries, then what we need to do is re-emphasize on this target and take it to the highest levels of government so that Parliament and key decision makers can know that it's really important. And I remember just a few weeks ago when our agency was meeting with the Parliamentary Committee on Education, there's a lot of emphasis on investments on research despite our limited resources. So that's in the UK. And its success has done something just in March 2023, the UK Prime Minister, and they separated the ministry. They had a standalone Minister of Science and Innovation in February. And I think the following month, they increased quite some amount of money, amounting to about Kenya shillings 65 billion for research in 1 year. You can compare that with what we have now currently, what we're giving the National Research Fund to disburse. It's around 300 630 million. Compare that with Kenya shilling 65 billion. So there's a lot of investments, and your voices as senior officers in the government will be quite important so that this money can be shared across all the ministries. It will not be Minister of Education alone. It will not be, because each one of you has something to undertake, whereas the Minister of Education is the mainstay when it comes to research and science. But when you talk of the technology and innovation, any ministry can take the lead, just like the way the Minister of ICT is taking the lead. So these are investments in the UK. But just to tell you something which is happening just across the border, which is similar to us, that also His Excellency President Museveni in 2021 established an independent Ministry of Science and Technology. What was the import of that? In that year, I think that was the previous financial year, he allocated an equivalent of Kenya shillings 15 billion for that ministry. And we're now talking of manufacturing medicine in outer space, going to another level. You might ask yourself, why are these investments coming in now? And quite a number of countries, by the way, are taking this route, is because a good part of this money is going towards national security and public safety, and then finally, economic development. The moment you bring in elements of or aspects of national security, public safety, national prosperity, then the politicians who make decisions might hear you much better than before. Yeah, China the same. Just capture a quick slide. They've invested heavily, and if you look at that slide, this was a presentation by the Prime Minister to their parliament, the annual state. It focused clearly on science, technology, and innovation. They're saying China has made remarkable progress in science and technology. The country has made major breakthroughs in key areas such as manned space flight, low and mass exploration, supercomputing, satellite. You look at those areas that are invested, they are really security matters. And when they do that, when they succeed in security matters, they end up leading even on economic matters, because most of the things that moved the economic side came from the military. Even in the US, the investments in the military, in the technologies, like even this internet matters, it came from the military. Then it came now to the civilian domain. So China is spending like Kenya shillings 63 trillion, not billions, but trillions annually in R&D. And that gives them about an expenditure of 3% of their GDP. That's China. In the US, again, as I'm saying, I'm giving a different picture just so that you can help us in escalating these matters. In the US, I think, last year, not I think, but truly last year, in August 9, 2022, President Joe Biden signed into law the landmark Chips and Science Act. That brought in on board 33.3 trillion Kenya shillings for research, science, technology, innovation. And this was to compete. And you can see the nation's economic and national security depends on our ability not only to harness the technologies of today, but to lay the foundation for the industries of the future. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time that we really escalated matters of science, technology, innovation to cut across the entire spectrum of government, whether security, whether public safety, whether economy, whether agriculture, and so forth and so forth. And I'm just borrowing from having learned from a number of these countries. This is just a quick statement given by the President Biden's security, not security, but science advisor. And I just quote the first statement, not waste your time. It says, for 75 years, America has led the world in science and technology. That leadership has had profound benefits for our national security, health, and economy. Unless we project matters of STI in that angle from those three perspectives, national security, public health, and economy, it will be very difficult to convince the politicians that really our progress depends on this. And that's why I speak about it passionately. And this is strongly emphasized just the other day when His Excellency presided over the first graduation of the National Defense University. That is in November, that is last month on the 17th. And his speech again was technology innovation will enrich our security. And he said, the president himself, he said, security agencies will employ theoretically sound, evidence-based, data-driven, and innovative approaches to problem solving. And he said research and innovation are the better foundation on which to establish Kenya's defense and security policy and strategy. There could never have been a better statement than that. So it's for the rest of us, what I'm going to figure out, how do we get to that realization at the end? And this we can easily achieve through science, technology, and innovation mainstreaming. I'll skip some slides. I'll go to this slide where it talks about what is the value proposition of this indicator. One, it anchors Kenya as a top-notch technology innovation hub by getting the data which we're able to relay to the ranking agencies, and we'll come to that. we're able to impart a culture of creativity and innovativeness. We're able to, or we are hoping that it will ensure a whole of government approach. If you fill the forms, there's a place which will ask you, with whom are you collaborating in achieving your mandate? So that you cannot achieve your mandate alone. It is impossible. I've never seen anybody who can achieve these things alone. So that collaboration has to be either forced by law or encouraged or promoted. Then we also believe that when we do it well, the end product will be an enhanced national security, national prosperity, and public safety. Moving a little bit faster, the co-agency is the STI ecosystem, which you need to know. As NACOSTI, we are the regulating agency. We have the implementing agency, which is the Kenya National Innovation Agency, and we have the National Research Fund. There's sometimes a mix-up of these two agencies. And I just want to repeat, the National Research Fund is a fund, is a bank. Just like we have the HELB, Higher Education Loan Board. It's supposed to collect funds and disburse, not to regulate research. The Kenya National Innovation Agency is to implement ICT, whether in all agriculture, whether in as NACOSTI, we regulate the sector. And we regulate it in several ways, through advisories to government, through licensing of research, through accreditation of research institutions like KEMRI and CRIDI, and so forth. So our work is a regulator, and as a regulator, it will not befit us to go and implement. You cannot regulate and implement. So those are the three key agencies. I will skip on that one. We have 17 functions, but very quickly, I just want to highlight one or two which might be of interest. Function number one is because there's something already on the website. We are mandated under function number one, number one, to develop in consultation with stakeholders the priorities in scientific, technological, and innovation activities in Kenya in relation to the economic and social policy of the government and the country's international commitments. And with that, we have, for the first time, I think this has taken quite some time due to some teething problems, but for the first time, I think our board, following consultation, even with some of you, and we have been presenting this slide, by the way, for quite a while. I think last week we wrote to all ministries, departments, agencies, and even the private sector, saying this is the final document, but you have 1 week to make changes. So there are 12-point areas which we hope the National Treasury will focus on. And you can see the matters R&D, the matters STI education, the matters of STI inclusivity, advocacy, diplomacy. Diplomacy part is becoming a very critical. How do we relay the scientific information that we get to Wanjiku, to Mwananchi? Because that came out strongly during the COVID pandemic. There's a lot of mistrust on what was coming out with the vaccine and so forth. Then on and on and on. I just want to cover some of the new areas. A good number, bottom up, the pillars of better are indeed captured. All of them are captured here, with the additional, which is globally benchmarked. But there are others which are unique, like number 7, the 5th Industrial Revolution. We hope the Minister of ICT, the Minister of Industries would lead in this process, because things are happening very fast worldwide. There's another one, number 9, which is new. We hope, like the Minister of Interior, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Defense, which I think has joined the STI mainstreaming. There's number 9, which is STI for national security, public safety, and emergency response, like happening COVID. So take time to read this. I don't have the time. Then why are we doing this work? Again, the Act mandates us to lead interagency efforts to implement sound policies and budgets. We're also allowed to advise. We're allowed to coordinate. You will look at function number 5 or number E. We are supposed to ensure coordination and cooperation between the various agencies involved in science and technology innovation space. So we are just discharging our mandate, but what we are known for mostly is that function number 7, or what you can call G, assure relevance and quality of science, technology, innovation programs in research institutes. But also there's one of, I've just forgotten it, there's one which number 6, I jumped number 6, accredit research institutes and approve all scientific research in Kenya. Please, we want to really encourage you. Yes, I think the charges is not the money that we are really after. We can even do it for free, but your research in whichever form needs to be reviewed by your peers, simply because some of the research is being undertaken now in the country could be harmful to the public, could be harmful to our prosperity, could be harmful to national security. We need to know which research is happening now. We are seeing cases of foreign interest using our master students, using our PhD students. The person is abroad, but is researching, and he has sponsored a master student or sponsored a PhD student. The research outcomes, The money is given to the student. The student is very happy, but the outcomes of that research is going out of the country. That is a great area of concern now, and especially on matters of life sciences, especially on matters of vaccine development, especially on matters on blood samples moving left and right, or even your genetics. I don't know how they do it. That's not my area. But matters of research now are of great concern and of great national interest. If you might Google, you might find the genome data of one of the countries in Africa at the south was entirely taken out of the system. And you can imagine what that is happening. You can also recall a recent some agency from outside, which was photographing people's eyes and so forth. Why are they doing that? These are the issues that we're asking all the agencies to come together in the best interest of our country. So I will not belabor on the functions. I'll skip those. David, am I there at the National Focal Point?
Yes, Prof, you're there.
Yes, I think you're progressing well. Maybe another
Yes.
20 minutes or so. Yes. So we are also, based on our function, we are also the country's national focal points for a number of Kenya's international obligations. We participate in their meetings. We try to ensure that Kenya's national interest is taken on board. And our role is simply the coordinating role. Like I've just come last week from Geneva in attending the Biological Weapons Convention. And here we went with a team. There were teams from Ministry of Interior, there were teams from Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In August, we had even a bigger delegation. I think now because of the limitations, we're not able to take a bigger delegation. But in August, we had a delegation of about 15. It had 5 ministries. It had the Ministry of Interior. It had somebody, Major General from the National Defense University. It had somebody from Agriculture. It had somebody from Ministry of Industry, from Kenya Bureau of Standards. Our work is a coordinating role, because this is where some of the key decisions that are affecting the country are being determined. We need to be on the table to ensure that our national interests are taken. So we are focal point of Biological Weapons Convention. We're focal point in the International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, a very interesting area because this is where they change genetics. We are a focal point to Africa Regional Cooperative Agreement for Research, Development, and Training related to nuclear science, part of IAEA. Again, another very interesting area. We are the focal point of Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization. And this one, we are really requesting the Minister of Interior, the Minister of Foreign Affairs to come on board on this one, because this is another key area. Ours is just to connect, to bring everybody on board. This is not our specialty. We are also in a STECO. Currently, I'm also in the governing board of the International Science Council, which has decided to host a governing board meeting within the next 4 months in Nairobi, Kenya. These are all very interesting. They determine directly or indirectly the future of Africa. And unless we participate in some of these events, we will not be able to find our way through. But there are a lot. Yeah, this is like now during in August. This is just a picture where we had a joint event with the US team of the Biological Weapons Convention, and this has escalated to a number of things where there's even support for the bill. The biosecurity bill is coming, and we are circulating it around before it goes to our ministry, to our cabinet secretary and peers, and then to Parliament. So there's a lot happening with regard to these international obligations. Very recently, we hosted a delegation from the European Union, from the embassies. There's about 14 embassies and high commissions in Kenya. You can guess what is the interest in this. There's a lot of interest in the country, but we need the ministries to come on board and pick what they can pick from this collaboration that we're able to undertake through NACOSTI. ICGB is funding one of the top regional research centers at Egerton University, again, through our efforts. And those of you who are coming on board for the first time, you will discover that we start to be sending you to the focal point, and maybe the CEO or the peers, I think in this case, the peers, will be sending the opportunities that arise, and they arise almost weekly. Opportunities in Afra, opportunities in so many other areas. Some are for scholarship, some are for visits, some are for, there are quite a number, by the way. So those who are coming for the first time, please be checking your mail. When you receive an email, share it with your colleagues in the State Department or in the ministry, because it's for the entire country. So a regional research center is being multi-billion, is being established at Egerton through this ICGB. At the Kenya Nuclear Regulatory Authority, I think very recently has been designated as a regional designated center to train in masters jointly with KU and other universities. This again is through our coordinating role. And beyond that, also recently, our minister established the National Research Technology Innovation Committee Consortium, which is being chaired by us. And this is meant to link us up to a number of EU programs, like Horizon Europe program has set aside 95 or 90 billion euros, not for Africa, but for the entire world. We have stakes in this, and they insist on multi-agency kind of approach where you write proposals focusing on climate change, focusing on health, and so forth. And it's quite a good amount of money. So please, we'll really encourage the relevant ministries, state departments to form a consortium on this. We are also the focal point currently of Erasmus programs. These are literally exchange of staff and so forth. We have circulated, I think, the recent call. We will circulate it again to those of you who are coming in for the first time, after you've given us your emails. But there are a lot of opportunities that are there, and this is the purpose of this STI mainstreaming. I've just picked one section, section 21 of the Act, that which says that it is an offense to establish or operate a research institute without authority. Part of STI mainstreaming is also to ask MDS to ensure that they are compliant with the provisions of the STI Act, because they are agencies, probably foreign, operating as research institutes without having registered. And that's an offense which we are currently following up on, using the relevant state agencies to be able to track. There are also others who are collaborating with our institutions, like you might have some international agencies collaborating with one of our ministries in health or agriculture and so forth. We need to know the background of those institutions in the best interest of the country. That's why STI becomes a matter of very closely public safety and national security, because there are things that are happening. We license research institutes, we follow the procedure given in the Act, and we ask you to help us uphold the standards that are set forth. We also license research, and part of the Act talks of any person who accesses, I'm reading that number 15, handles, transacts, transfers, or moves any specified technology or any material necessary for scientific research within, into, or from Kenya without a license issued contravenes and is liable to a fine not exceeding 5 million shillings or to imprisonment of a term not exceeding 4 years. That's the seriousness, or both. We will call upon the key state agencies, security agencies, to help us implement this, because things have changed since the COVID pandemic came. Our lives are at risk. You do not know what somebody might be doing with kind of research that they're doing, whether in a lab or in their own house. The reason why we undertake this licensing, as captured in the Act, the criteria for any research to be licensed is that, one, it is beneficial to the country. So if somebody is doing a research which is going to benefit our competitors outside the country, as the Commission, we are mandated to decline that request. Yeah, you might be doing a wonderful research, but which is just going to make our neighbors or others down south to be able to defeat our national interest, then that cannot be allowed. But also, if it's likely to affect national security, as checked, not by us, by security organs, like the Ministry of Interior, then again, we'll decline on that one. If it's likely to affect the lives of Kenyans, we will decline that one. If it's likely to affect the culture and IP rights of communities, we'll decline that one. We also have to meet the international obligations, like the BWC, chemical weapons, CTBTO, biotics, and so forth, which Kenya is a signatory to, and by extension, it means the Constitution provides that if you're signed to an obligation, then it becomes law. And so forth. So matters of research staff undertaking research jointly with a university. Just please ensure and inquire, are you compliant wherever you are, wherever you're undertaking this? Is it known? Is it in national interest? Does it have a license? Because that will help us also monitor and know which kind of, who is doing what in the country and who is a specialist in what. And in this, I strongly move very fast to what we're calling dual use research of concern. This is a research that is intended to provide a clear benefit or progress to humanity, but which could easily be misapplied to do harm. It's an area which is coming in the COVID, in the wake of COVID. It never used to be a serious matter. But with the coming of COVID, even the use of microphones, politicians were avoiding the use of microphones because your opponent could use that. So this is another area that we also hope the relevant ministries and state departments can help us, especially Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Interior, Minister of Health. This dual research of concern is a matter of great interest. Now, And it's not only life sciences, but this is something which I captured again. You might be aware of it, some of you, in the Daily Nation, October 17th, 2023, very recently. The African Union Commission has fallen victim of cyber crime. Cybersecurity is a matter of great concern. But here is a situation where the event fraudsters deployed artificial intelligence tools to impersonate the Continental Body's head, Musa Faki. That is technology being used in a harmful way. And these fraudsters faked his voice and placed several video calls to European capitals seeking to arrange meetings. Imagine that thing happened. Somebody faking you or faking one of our senior leaders and making arrangements for a meeting, maybe even transferring money. This is how technology has become. And that's why all of us have to be alert and all of us have to work on this. So this happened, we're able to detect it, what they're calling the deep fakes, but it's there. It is now, AI is for the good of humanity, but it can also be converted to another very dangerous use, which affects public health, security, and so forth and so forth. So this is live. This is, you can Google that one. I've also captured another one, which I don't know whether it's good. You will help me. I'm leaving this with you. This one I just captured this December. This was 4 days ago. Just somebody's calling. This was just 3 days ago. Several companies in China are specializing in so-called ghost bots. I don't know what that is. And this is where they're able to create a replica using AI of the people, their relatives who have passed on the years that be. So they're able to, you're able to hear you are departed. Let me just pick up this, sorry. I'll call you shortly. Yes, so this is a matter of ethics. I'm putting this to you. Can you use AI to digitally resurrect our past ancestors, or you have lost a beloved one, and use AI to be hearing the voice of that person, even to create is it a video image of that person? I leave that to you. This is how technology is being converted now, for the good, for the middle. We don't know whether it's good or bad, and even for the bad. What I presented before, we are in the 5th Industrial Revolution, where they are manufacturing body parts. The gentleman there is the first man in the world to be fitted with a 3D printed eye. Very good, he's able to see, he's able to improve health, you're able to save on lives. But for the Ministry of Interior and the security sector, if someone like me goes out of the country and gets that eye, will I just come in and get into the country? Or will there be a checkup to find out if that my eye, which has been printed, is a normal eye or is doing other things? This is highly the current level of security. They are manufacturing the ear. The latest I saw, they were trying to print a hat. They're printing a hat which can pump. And I don't know, probably what they cannot print will be your soul and spirit, or my soul and spirit. But this is happening now. This is where technology is. And so even the wars of the future will not involve great instruments. It will just be putting something inside an individual and we all perish, or is it what? Ruining the food that we buy in the supermarkets and so forth. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, that's why we are saying we are dealing with very difficult times. Another one, research which is not yet confirmed, somebody is trying to portray that when the air gets polluted, the number of suicides increase. This was like data somebody just in one of the US cities, that when the air gets polluted by 1 microgram per cubic meter, the daily suicide rates rise by 0.5%. This is again a matter of technology, because who pollutes the air? It is industries, it is ourselves who pollute the air. But you can see how it has been put, this like in our country where the suicide levels are increasing now. Wouldn't this be a matter of concern or interest to relevant Ministry of Health and Agriculture to find out how whether this is true for our country? That is part of STI mainstreaming. Coming back home, this was in the news. How safe is your Sukuma Wiki? You can read that information, that slide. How safe? This was a research done by KEFIS, one of our key institutions. And they're saying that out of 10 Sukuma Wiki samples, 90% were contaminated with toxic pesticides. This was unintentional. The question is, suppose you have intentional, you have the so-called non-state actors converting this to destroy part of our population, or a county, or a region, or Nairobi. Will they still need to use very sophisticated means, or they simply go this route? Again, I throw this as part of STI mainstreaming. So when you are listing your work plan, the relevant ministries, we are kindly requesting you to include this kind of checkup so that you invest in having inspectors. We found out that as of now, we don't have really clearly defined act that allows for inspectors to go into supermarkets, apart from KEBS, to go into supermarkets and check our Sukuma Wiki, or even check this is another data which came April this year. A recent study by Cambridge revealing that contamination of raw pork and poultry meat in supermarkets is a cause for concern. Who checks on this? This is science and technology. We get the good side, the food. On the other side, there's the risk of contamination, and it can kill so many people or cause health hazards. And health hazards can be in different forms. Maybe infertility, maybe so many things, headaches, madness, and so forth. This is how serious matters of science technology is at this particular point in time. The hunger issue has been there, and we're all aware when you go to supermarket, you have to figure out which one do you buy, because you do not know whether they're affected by aflatoxin. So these are not new things. So ladies and gentlemen, as I come to the very end, I'm just checking. Yes, I think I'll spend 40 minutes, so I'm really within time, another 10 minutes. One of the reasons that we really are kindly and humbly requesting you to work with us in this is that the data that we'll be requesting that we'll be submitting quarterly will help inform Kenya's global rankings. And there are about 9 that we have captured. There could be more, but the ones which are based on the country includes the Global Innovation Index done by WIPO, which is a UN agency. It has, I've listed there some of the criteria that they have. Then we have the World Competitiveness Index or ranking. Then you have the World Talent Ranking. Then you have the World Digital Competitiveness Index. I think this one, the Ministry of ICT must be aware of it. I believe they're aware of it, and I strongly believe they are working on it to make sure that we get the best ranking. And indeed, Kenya is doing very well in ICT. You have number 5, the most technologically advanced countries in the world ranking. We have the SDG Index, which scores countries based on each one of them. And Kenya is ranking all of them, by the way. We have the Human Development Index. We have the ICT ranking, which again, I hope the Ministry of ICT will take the lead in it. Then you have the Frontier Technologies Index, which we hope the Ministry of Industries and Trade and several ministries can come together. We are kindly requesting you to give us the data that pertains to you. We're also kindly requesting your State Department to figure out which of the indices listed here are you able to contribute. In the Ministry of Education, as NACOSTI, we are providing the data for R&D, but we are required to give data for this. So we are requesting, WIPO, I think, is getting in touch with various ministries, or what they're calling also the focal persons, to give them data on each of the areas that they're looking for. If we look at like number 1, I'll go straight to WIPO, the Global Innovation Index, where Kenya's position has moved from number 85 to number 100. The COVID has impacted. We are doing very well, by the way. We're almost like second to South Africa. And then Botswana came and passed us, so we were third. But with this happening, even countries which should not have passed us are passed us. And when we checked what they gave for Kenya, I think I have a table there. This is the Kenya. Kenya, we're number 100. They were checking on data about institutions, data on human capital and research, data on infrastructure, data on business sophistication, a number of areas. And where we performed worst was in the data for human capital and research, and also on infrastructure. And infrastructure includes ICT usage, ICT access. In fact, the infrastructure was mostly ICT. They're talking of government online services. We are doing very well on government online services, but we have not relayed that information to these global institutions to give us the right ranking. What is the importance of that ranking? Being highly ranked attracts business into the country. It attracts industries in the country because it indicates the ease of doing business in a country. So those rankings are important. They're not just ranking for celebrating. They're rankings which have direct bearing on our economy, on our industries, on our trade, on our partnerships, and so forth. So we are kindly requesting you to help us with this ranking, especially the one which is urgent, which, of course, we are required to give data by next week, 25th. Because the next rankings are just 2024 rankings are just coming on board very close. So help us get that data. I'll skip this. And there's a questionnaire, which a very simplified one, not the same as the normal one that we give you, which my colleague, Dr. Ngigi, will circulate to you. And we're requesting if you can spend just 3 days getting us this data. It's a very simple. We're just asking, like, if I go there, yes, what is the number of researchers? What is the number of staff in your State Department or your ministry who have master's, PhD qualifications, from master's to PhD qualifications? The numbers who are male, the numbers who are female. What are the numbers of technicians in your agency? Male, female. The supporting staff for research, science, technology, innovation. So not just the typical research, but also technology development and innovation. Then we're asking you to estimate your expenditure of your operational budget. Give us, please provide approximately the amount of funds spent on R&D. And they have defined R&D. It's not the typical master's, PhD, university research. It's anything that, even things like doing a feasibility study, like for the institutions like roads institution or Ministry of Public Works, undertaking a feasibility study is a form because we're creating new knowledge. So they have defined R&D in this document. So tell us how much you spend on an R&D, if you're from government, from business enterprise, or from funds that are from outside and others. Very simple, a few questions, and that will help us. So I will not go into the tables. These are the tables that about 8 or so 10 tables. Our team have simplified it based on stakeholder request. We have digitized it. So it's about filling. The beauty in first step, it might look as if there are a little bit more tables. But once you have fed in the subsequent quarters, the subsequent years, you'll just be making very minor changes based on the change. So you have given us data on human capital for the first time. The next time, because the same data will appear, you'll just be updating. You'll just be telling us that we have 2 more new stuff, and that is all. So it is not cumbersome at all. They're quite a number. But for those who have participated before, I'm just moving to tell you some of the data that we are getting, which indeed is a very good harvest of information, which you will also need. We'll have it open to the public based on the data. Is it the data, the Act on data management and provision will give you what you need to get and keep secure what needs to be kept secure. We have the first set that we have received, which our team has been able to analyze. I think that's for the last financial year, that the total cost of equipment, the infrastructure, equipment for research, equipment for science, equipment for technology innovation, we're able to see that research institutes have equipment worth about 2 billion. Universities and colleges have equipment about 1 billion. TVET and tertiary institutions have equipment about 1.4 billion. State corporations, like now yourself, not yourself, I think state corporations, that's like Nacosti, have equipment about 22 billion. And the ministries and state departments like yourself have equipment worth 19 billion. This is any equipment for research, for technology, for innovation. And you'll find like those heavy equipment ministries, like the Ministry of Public Works, is what causes the figure to be quite high. But you've gone ahead and I'll move very fast and even try to just sample institutions so that we talk in terms of investment in infrastructure at research institutes. We're able to see that Calro is leading, having equipment worth 1.4 billion. Kefri is following. Kipra is there. When you come to universities, you are surprisingly able to see that Chuka has more equipment. I think probably University of Nairobi might not have given us all their campuses, but this is raw data. That's why we can't give it to you. We'll still validate it. When you come to where you belong, ministries and state departments, you're able to see that the Ministry of ICT has equipment worth 18 billion shillings. The beauty of this, why we need this is to circulate this, is that instead of another ministry purchasing an equipment which is already at the Ministry of ICT, you could simply request to use that equipment, of course, at a fee. So it's a two-way benefit, where those who need equipment will go to ICT and hire that equipment. ICT will get the money. And that will be very crucial, especially for research institutions. It will be very crucial for hospitals. Like we know KU has this unique cyber equipment, probably they're saying the second one in Africa. So rather than institutions spending money investing on another one, they would rather invest on something else that the country doesn't have. So this is about infrastructure, and you have captured that. We have also captured, I'm just skipping. David, am I still there?
Yes, yes, Prof. We are still together.
Yes. So again, we have been able to list the equipment. There's a way of defining this equipment so that somebody can easily, and we hope you can have an app from one of our ICT people, where you click that you are looking for an equipment called Genetic Analyzer System, DNA sequencer, and you'll be able to see that that equipment is at Kefri, or is that CalRO, or is that Ministry of ICT, or Ministry of Agriculture, or is that Ministry of Interior? So this is the kind of benefit that we think some of the, what we're calling the value propositions that your participation in this STI mainstreaming involved. So you have quite a number. These ones are quite many. I'll just keep them again. Just keep them. You can see like CalRO has quite some equipment, and even their what? At the top, like there, you can see they have an equipment which is what? $500 million. Yes, which is called the digestibility trial unit. So rather than another institution with limited resources buying the same, you could be using the one at CalRO until you become rich enough. So we have that information. The next set that we are having, if I might move a little bit faster. Oh, there are quite a number of data. This is data that is coming from all of you. Oh, it's quite a lot. Yes, it's research and development expenditure. This is of interest to Nakosi. We are able to see the R&D expenditure in state corporations and research institutes. Like you can see, the National Cancer Institute is spending over 100% of the operational budget on R&D, followed by CalRO, followed by Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute. If we come to universities, the same. Machakos University, I'll go to where maybe you belong. No, probably we didn't. There should be one of the ministries. Probably I've left it out. But this is the kind of data that you're getting. And this is the data that informs even those global innovation rankings. You're able to see those who are spending on research and development expenditure is being given by the tables that are listed there. Workforce, this is one of the things we are requesting you. For the first time, we are trying to get data. If somebody asks how many people in the country have PhD in the area of natural sciences and are male and are above 50 years old, we're able to say that there are about 300 people of that category. This is very essential also, just to know the workforce that we have that are directly impacting on research, science, technology, innovation. And if we moved in also ahead, we're able to say top institutions who have the number of PhD. This is mainly, this is not for ministry and departments, because PhD doesn't matter in the ministry. But in institutions like universities where they're doing research, then PhD becomes important. The data now tells us, for example, that in universities and university colleges, University of Nairobi has 675 PhDs, followed by JKUAT and so forth and so forth. But this, I think, is not key for you. Research, technology, and innovation output, this is key for you. This is where we are capturing the number of publications, okay? That we are seeing maybe last year, Kenya had publications totaling 650. For ministries and departments, we would hope that will help us increase the number of intellectual property patents that are direct bearing on Global Innovation Index. You can see we have about 146 patents, commercialized products, like the Ministry of Industry. They've been talking about commercialization, creating jobs for the youth and so forth. This is where I think the ministry is. So when we're doing your work plan, we pray that you'll capture something on this, that you will make some effort to increase the number of patents in the country. Again, a lot of data. You're able to see, like in terms of patents, universities, the Kimathi is leading with 4. If I go to state corporations, Kengen, I think, is leading. UNES is leading. So we're able to get this data. The state corporations, there's some repetition there. I think we'll correct some correction we made. But we're able to get this kind of data, which is quite key. This is now leading institutions who are working with the private sector, a very important area in terms of collaboration. And you're able to see there, like on that slide, that CalRO is able to attract 12 billion from international partners. You're able to see that Cambridge was able to attract 1.7 billion from international partners. And I think they deserve commendation. So there's even, if there's research funding from the National Research Fund, such institutions should be given priority because they're already working, going out of their way to get that money. Of interest to us, of course, is that who are these partners? And are our national interests taken care of? Like if CalRO has 174 partners, who are they? That's some of the things that we also request in the relevant government agencies find out, so that as we benefit, our interests are also secured. So that data is there. I'm almost there. I'll skip this because leading institution, I think I'll do. So in conclusion, we're just saying, ladies and gentlemen, that STI are key drivers of economic and social development, as well as national security and public safety. The pandemic has reaffirmed the vital role of science, technology, and innovation as a global public good. We want to partner with the entire STI sector, which has all the ministries, the private sector, and all of us. And you, STI Focal Point and champions, are really our contact persons in your various institutions. So with that, thank you very much. I think I've spent 55 minutes, and I want to thank you for your patience. And as usual, before I join another meeting, if there are some very burning questions or clarifications, then through David, I might be able to take them before I exit and come back later for to join this training. Back to you, David.
Okay. Thank you, Professor, for that insightful presentation. And indeed, thank you for projecting the role of STI, our STI for our institution, for our country, and for the region. Very important for us to have that message driven home. So we really do appreciate your time and your input in this. The distinguished participant, I think at this point would request you, if you have anything that is really burning that you want Professor Oyala to respond before he dash to other commitments, kindly please do raise your hand so that we can enable you to raise the question. And again, our Q&A and chat platform are still open. You can do that. We have an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, if you really need to have something for Director General to respond. Justus.
Yeah, there's a hand up.
Justus, kindly okay. You can have your comment.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much, Prof, for this session. Hope I'm being heard.
Yes, Justus, we can hear you.
Yes.
Now, I have a few concerns. Number one, regarding the 2% budget, especially for organizations that are getting into STI mainstreaming newly, I do not know how we will navigate the terrain, considering the annual work plan and the procurement plans for the financial year 23-24 are as good as sorted. And maybe this was sorted even before the indicator was anchored in the performance contract. So it may give us a little bit hard time, especially in the first financial year. But maybe going forward, as we do our budget documents, our annual work plan and procurement plans, we will try to see how to integrate STI mainstreaming into the same. Question number 2, regarding gender mainstreaming, it's one of the clear objectives. I would wish to understand the scope of gender mainstreaming being targeted under STI mainstreaming, considering we have gender mainstreaming anchored under the State Department for gender, and we have a whole unit established to coordinate the gender mainstreaming at MDA levels. I would wish to know the variations in the scope so that we do not have colliding mandates for various entities. Then question number 3 regarding the tables. I have looked at the tables, table 8A and 8B. I would wish to know if this table is actually relevant to all the MDS, or it is only relevant to, I'm looking at the content of the tables vis-a-vis the mandates of, especially now say energy. I'm from the State Department for energy. May I know to what extent table 8A and 8B is relevant to
could you just let me know what is the content of 8A? What's the content of table 8A and B?
Table 8A is dealing with the microorganisms and containment. Yes. I would wish to know how that is relevant to energy.
Yes.
Then still on the tables, may I know, are all the tables supposed to be filled on quarterly basis, or we have those that should be filled on annual or semi-annual basis? And then regarding the STI champions and focal persons, for a state agency that has appointed an STI mainstreaming committee complete with a chairperson, secretary, and members representatives from various relevant departments. Must we really have an STI focal person appointed, or the secretary of the STI committee is presumed to be the focal person, while the members are presumed to be the champions from the various departments? Finally, regarding the coordination of the parastatals, I know to a large extent we coordinate PC implementation in the sagas under our purview. However, it's also important to note that the sagas also have PCs that are independent from the ministerial PC. And that PC has STI as an indicator on its own, which is being implemented under the saga. So when we do quarterly reports to NACOSTI, say, the scope of our quarterly report is limited to what the State Department is doing. It does not encompass what our parastatals are doing on the other side. Or what did you mean by having a wholesome approach? Do you expect the State Department to do a report that encompasses up to what the sagas under us are implementing? Because the tradition has been we only do a PC report that is limited to what the State Department is doing, since sagas will be reporting on their own. Thank you very much, Prof.
Wow, that was a mouthful. I guess you have asked questions for a number of you, but I'll mix them up. And thank you very much. I'll start probably with the last one, which is coordination of parastatals. There is a very important document there, which you're calling the work plan. In the work plan, you'll capture what is within your functions and what is within your mandate. So one of the areas which I hope my colleagues, Dr. Ngigi and Mr. Japan, will relate to you is that you will capture the supervision of parastatals. So your work will be to supervise, not to capture what they have done. So they will confirm to you, like number one, have they included that in their PC? Because last year we had a situation of, despite the circular from the head of public service on performance contract, some people ignored it. So we are asking, and it was agreed literally that the minister, the PS, the State Department will be the one first, because you're the one signing with them, confirm that you have it there, and then your work quarterly will be to confirm that they have submitted. And when you do that, you score your mark, because your work is literally supervision. But you will not submit the work that they're doing, because they're semi-autonomous, as you're saying. Then in terms of STI, I hope that's okay, Justice?
That's okay.
That's helpful. Yeah, thank you. In terms of STI champions, I'm very grateful, by the way, for ministries or departments that have a whole team. Yes, one of them, probably the chairman, because the focal person is the lead of that team.
The chair.
So I would imagine if the chairman is too senior, maybe the chairman, if the chair is the PS, then we don't expect the PS to be a focal person. But if one of us senior officers there, then that is because you are literally going to be receiving a lot of information. You're also dealing with your institution's data. So you need to be somebody who is in a leadership role in your State Department, a senior officer. So we are hoping that the chair, if possible, will be the STI focal person. In fact, by that virtue, the STI focal person is the lead. So I hope that helps you also. Justice, does that help? Are we still online?
Yes, I'm online. I think that one helps.
Okay, that one helps. Thank you. And I think it's for all of us. Yeah, you want to add on something?
Yeah, and maybe regarding these parastatals, considering the performance contracts for parastatals have already been vetted by PSPMU and are under implementation.
Yes.
In the event the STI indicator is not anchored in the performance contract, at this time when it is not, the system is not open for editing, what happens?
There's another way there's another way which could, I don't know whether I could call it illegal or whatever. You can still do STI mainstreaming without anchoring into the PC, because what will happen is that you might miss that target. And if you are there in last years when His Excellency the President was launching the results, he just happened to have said in a certain target, I don't know what it was, whether national values, that those who are not reported on this have to write to explain why. You don't want to be caught up in that. Yes. So if it's not, if they can open, if they can change the PC, fine. But if not, let them do it on the sidelines. Is that helpful?
That is okay.
Now, yeah, quarterly basis, as I've said, our tables are such that you fill them once and the data remains. The quarterly basis will be just the changes. So literally you'll have the same tables there and we'll only be able to see the change that there was, like in terms of human capital, we only had these two. So it's quarterly, and the quarterly bit allows you to, there's nothing which can be static for a whole year. So if it's human capital, there could be a change. So it's just the little change that will happen. That's what will tell us, but the rest will remain the same. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yes, there are some tables which might not be relevant, and we agree. And actually, we are working on a way, and this may be the next step, where we don't have to give everything to everybody. We'll be able to say that this one we know really doesn't involve this. But when you look at that table 8, if I'm not wrong, it's about the Biological Weapons Convention. It is Kenya's international obligation. It is so difficult to know which agency doesn't deal with some microorganism. So the best thing is to have the table, then you come and say not applicable at the top.
Okay.
Very simple, yeah. But so that we have records that this institution reported is not applicable. But if we start now deciding that it's only these ones, then tomorrow, like at where we had at Nakosti, we're calling the Nakosti Plaza, we have one agency, I think, handling GMOs. They decided to have a lab within the building, which we didn't expect. We thought they are a regulator, they'll be going out of the building, and they will just be checking what is happening with the other stakeholders. But then they decided to have their own lab of the same. So even you as the Minister of Energy, you might decide to have a lab which is very close to that. So where it doesn't fit, and I think this is to all of us, where you think that doesn't involve you, just say, and be sure that it doesn't involve, just say not applicable. And Unacha and I. Does that help?
That is okay, sir.
Yeah, great. Then I come to the gender issues. We will not be duplicating the roles. For us, the gender issues is in terms of research, science, technology, and innovation. So if that data is already with the one ministry, if the data that we're looking for is already one ministry, we wouldn't mind the same data just being relayed to us. Because we are trying to check, like, women in science, that's a big topic. Yeah, women in technology, women in engineering, that I think is a bigger topic. In other cases, when we talk of social sciences, we want to talk of men in social sciences and so forth. So we'll not be duplicating any role. Ours will be the perspective of the fact that science is known to be toward one gender. Are we making efforts to improve? So we'll not be duplicating, just the data. I hope that is okay. Then the 2% budget, I agree. For those who were there before, they knew that is a request. In fact, what we did in the first implementation, which will apply even for you, those who are coming in for the first time, is that you'll just commit that next year we will put in this. But the other thing that our team, I guess, as explained, will explain to you, 2% is not only the money you put in the raw research. If you have taken your staff for training, any training, like in energy matters, and I think there are quite a number of engineers in the Ministry of Energy, that is contributing, that you can document that amount of money, the money you've set aside for training. If you are taking people outside the country for specialized training or specialized conference, that is the same. If you have bought equipment, which I think the ministry, I think you supervise Kengen and a number, you have some equipment which is, you document that. But then this is supposed to be progressive. And it's towards meeting that target of the act, it's towards meeting even, I think, the government's wish that we dedicate 2% of our GDP to that. So this is more of a comply or explain, saying now we are limited and then we are moving. But there needs to be some element of an attempt. It is broad, it captures, as I said, the equipment you buy. If you have gotten or bought even something like a PowerPoint projector to project not meetings, but to project matters of technology, presentations or lectures, that is part of that technology. So just as I hope I've tried my best. So 2 more, if possible.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Oh, okay, thank you. 2 more so that. And David, I hope you have captured those questions of justice and our response just for record purposes.
Yes, Digi, that was very important. We have Peter. Your hand is up.
Yes, Dr. Good afternoon. Sorry, I had to join late. I was in another meeting with my seniors. My name is
We do
Peter
appreciate the time.
the forum, and I'm happy to be in the meeting, but I've caught up with the tail end of the presentation.
Peter,
Professor,
if you can help, from which agency, from which state department?
no, I'm with Justice. I'm the chair with Justice.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not new to you. We sit in some committees with you, Professor.
Okay, great.
Good.
Yes,
Now,
go ahead.
Maybe two questions here.
Mm-hmm.
We mentioned about training and the cost of training. At times, we train our people outside Kenya with the partnership with our partners who take part of the cost. Other countries, for example, in the Arab world, in Europe, Asia. How do we quantify that? Or is that part of what should be quantified in terms of the cost of training? At times, the cost component is undertaken by our partners, but those are benefits to Kenya. How do we capture that? Number two, currently we are working with a number of countries in Africa, and especially Black Africa, in the energy sector, where we have been contracted to undertake research and even work outside Kenya on behalf of those countries. That is, our agencies and even the ministries also staff are at times involved. How do we capture that kind of an engagement? For example, Kengen has been working with Ethiopia to do work on geothermal. I'm also in the process of doing a few engagement with other countries on the same, with GDC and the like. How do we capture that kind of work towards STI? Thank you, Professor.
Great, Peter, and it's indeed very pleasing that you're almost like the Calro, people able to attract a lot of international funding. There's some support which sometimes is defined as support in kind. It's not in the form of cash. Like if an international agency supports your staff for training, so you estimate. That's what even we do at Nacosti. You estimate, because most of the data that you give here, a good number could actually be estimate. You estimate that it took for this staff, they spend this on air ticket, normal rates. We trust each other, and you estimate, and on that one you actually include it on that very important table on our institutions have still been working silos. And there's a lot of great shift towards that multi-sector approach. So that will fill in that table, and will be among the teams that we later on celebrate the people who have attracted international partnership. So with regard to the training, we are talking of how much fund percent. With regard to putting in the cost that you spend, it cannot be the cost that you actually, the money that has been captured in the budget. That one you report. But now the part that is funded by foreign partners, you shift to the other side, that we are this kind of partnership and receive this kind of money for training. And you can put in brackets in kind. It was not hard cash. Then for the contracted, you're saying you have been contracted to undertake research on behalf of other countries. That is wonderful. It again fits very much in terms of when you're asking you how many partnerships do you have, how much money did it involve? I strongly believe in the near future, when we have those presidential awards under the Kenya National Innovation Agency, such great institutions, ministries, and departments should be celebrated, because they have brought money in. And that's what even I think the president was talking about yesterday in terms of people getting jobs outside. You're getting a job. You're not going outside, but you're getting a job from outside and doing it in the country. Does that help, Peter?
Oh, yeah, yes, Professor. Thank you. I think that's good enough.
Thank
you, sir. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. From another agency now, not energy, from another state department. Very interesting questions, and I'm happy to try my best. David, back to you. If there's any other hand up.
Thank you, Professor. We seem not to have any other burning issue, but we still continue to invite our colleagues to put any issues for comments, suggestion, and question, which will make a time to respond. I think, DG, we really want to really thank you for your time and the insight and the guidance, and you've really taken good care, justice to those questions, which I know they affect and they cut across all our colleagues from State Department and ministries. Thank you, DG. We may have
to let you go.
Yes, thank you. Just requesting again our distinguished participants, they help us with that form. David, you'll be able to circulate to them after you have the emails. The one on there is R&D questionnaire.
R&D questionnaire. Yes, we will.
Yeah, because we are going with public institutions and also private. Yeah, they share that and they can help because it actually affects Kenya's ranking, which is quite key. And we'll follow up. So I hope you're also able to make their contact so that you're able to follow up on that. Otherwise, I think thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and we look forward to working with you on this. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Prof. I think we will proceed with the program, and we do appreciate. Thank you, our colleagues, for your time.
Yes, good afternoon. Just some quick additions to what the DG has said. Sorry, 450. Sorry, just a minute. Sorry. It's not speaking. I'm trying to put my video on, but I believe you can hear me. Quickly, on the issue of the champions and focal person, ideally, I think that has been clarified to Julius, that the moment you are appointed the focal person, ideally, and I presented this, you become the chair of the committee, and then champions ideally. I hope you can hear me well. Sorry. Yes. So basically, as I was saying, the moment you are appointed as the focal person, ideally you are the chair. You become the chair of the, or you are appointed as a chair, ideally will be the focal person, and champions are the members. Quickly, another quick one on the 2% allocation. If, for example, actually this year, 20th cycle performance contracting guidelines were formulated in such a manner that they work together with the budgeting process, the national budgeting process, and the procurement process. But still, if you didn't ideally allocate the 2% directly in your budget, then you look at the expenditure. You realize that you are still spending as the DG has said, any money that you spend in the area of research, technology, innovation, technologies that you're adopting and such, then when you are reporting, that's what you look at. So there is no harm if it's not directly in you didn't commit directly in your budget, but you are supposed, the mitigation is that you look at the spending, the expenditure. So you speak to accounts, you speak to finance officers when you are reporting, they'll be able to tell you across-wide the areas that you have spent in the area of research, science, technology, and innovation. On the gender mainstreaming, again, just an addition. When you look at it is one of the strategic issues, and among the issues that you are committing under your STI strategy, ideally you are committing inclusivity. So that, as you say, these are the objectives, this is what we want to do in our implementation matrix, then the expectation is that you need to observe gender parity, inclusivity, appointment of committees, you observe that as the DG has explained and all that. So basically, there is no contradiction between it and the indicator that we use to implement on gender mainstreaming. In fact, is a matter of also looking at your gender policies and all that in the relation of STI mainstreaming. Those objectives, how are you mainstreaming matters gender? So there is no conflict at all. And the last one on that was on SAGAS and the State Department, the relationship basically. Remember, SAGAS negotiate their contract with you. So basically what we were saying, and this came out in my presentation, is that during the PC negotiation, because they negotiate with the ministry, not performance contracting and monitoring unit, they do the vetting. So before the vetting is done, you need to ensure, because if already you have committed as a ministry, then as you negotiate with the SAGAS below, that is the dimension that you need to ensure that also they have committed, so that ideally, remember, they are contributing to your sector plan, so they are part and parcel of it. So that is during negotiation. And in terms of reporting, of course, as we said, they have their own mandate. They report directly to NACOST on the indicator. But ideally, it is when we talk about coordination, which ideally arises in your STI strategy as a strategy, then that is the point of inclusion. So basically, that is the clarification I wanted to bring on board, and I think I've addressed it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Fijaman for that. Very important. I think distinguished participants, we are now going into the last presentation for the day, which again we are saying it is very important because we are invited as State Department, as ministries to innovate so that we are able to survive. And in that, we need that enabling environment. So allow me at this juncture to invite my colleague, Godfrey Karelwa, who will help us into dealing with that last session for the day. And again, very important for us moving forward in terms of how do we need to do things differently. So, GP, if you are able to take the floor. And indeed, we continue to really thank you, dear participants, for the interest that you're showing. And as we are saying, this is the most critical segment for our country to have you on board. So, GP, you can take the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Gigi. I think mine will be a continuation, but at the end of it all, why are we undertaking our research, science, technology, and innovation? And we are looking at intellectual property, ideally as an economic tool. Because at the end of the day, we'll find institutions. Of course, I'm aware we are having state departments and ministries, but you also oversee what happens in the agencies under you. And sometimes we undertake very good research, science, technology. And when it comes to technology transfer, at one point, we fail in what is known as the valley of death. And we are not able to commercialize the outputs as have been indicated in the previous presentations. Therefore, by us having the intellectual property policy, we are able to actualize and to get the benefit for the citizens. So when we talk about intellectual property, it is founded on quite an elaborate policy and legal framework. We have the treaties, the conventions, and we also have the protocols to which Kenya is a signatory. We have the Constitution of Kenya, and the Director General mentioned when you go to Article 11 and Article 40, the state undertakes to promote and safeguard the intellectual property of Kenyans. We also have the Industrial Property Act, which deals with the patents, industrial design, utility models. We have the trademarks. We have the copyright. We have the Science, Technology, and Innovation Act, where NACOST was established. And we have the policy framework. We also have, of late, the Protection of Traditional Knowledge and Cultural Expressions Act. Of course, there is the enforcement from the Anti-Counterfeits, and we have the Seed and Plant Varieties Act, which deals with the plants. So when we talk about intellectual property, we're actually talking about creations of the mind, talking about inventions, artistic works, and we are talking about symbols. and images. But ideally, as I mentioned, it's about the economic development. And all these images or aspects of intellectual property are more to do with the commerce or business. So we have a policy and regulatory framework, as I've indicated, but also because intellectual property is protected in law, there is the balance between the interest of the innovators or inventors and the public interest. And that's why most of the intellectual property is protected for a limited term. And as much as you protect, it is also not closed from those who are undertaking education so that we can continue improving. So it's really a system which balances matters of creativity and innovation for public benefit. Of course, the most celebrated is the aspect of the patents, which is an exclusive right granted for an invention. But of course, you get that right, but you must provide all the technical information which is published. And anybody in your field should be able to understand what your patent is all about. So it talks about novelty. Something has to be new, not just in Kenya, but ideally in the world. Even yourself, you're not supposed to have availed that information to the public before. It must have an inventive step, which means you must go beyond what is known in the subject area, but it must also be useful. Of course, for patents, it is 20 years from the application filing date. Of course, the 20 years would help the inventor because, as we have mentioned earlier, research is an investment. It's assumed that within 20 years, if you have commercialized your product, you would have recovered or you would have recouped your investment. So some of the examples of patents, we have the paperclip. It may look very simple because we have been using it, but it was patented sometimes in 1897, several years ago. We also have the light bulb, the famous one by Edison, that was 1880. We take it for granted. Of course, for the paperclip, it has nowadays comes out in very many colors. Recently, we have the 3D printer. But just thinking about patents, you may want to ask yourself how many patents are there in the smartphone that you own. And you'll find there are very many. So at the end of the day, you must cross-license. The next other aspect is of patents is the issue of trademarks. And trademarks, we are aware of logos. The reasoning behind trademark is that you should be able to be distinguished, whatever service that you are giving, from the one of other organizations, whether they are competitors or not. So when we talk about trademarks, it may be a symbol, it may be a word, it may be a phrase, or it may be a combination. Of course, it can either be for a product or it might be a service. Examples of trademarks which we have in this country. Of course, you can see the NTV, there's the Google, there's the Equity, Cooperative Bank. The Lacoste logo is a trademark and it has actually been registered as a trademark. The other one is copyright. This one would include books, talk about music, talk about computer programs, advertisements, articles, drawings. These ones, I don't think it requires much more explanation. I think it's something we are aware of. And musicians are making quite a bit out of copyright. The other popular one is industrial design. When you think about the shape of the bottles, Coca-Cola bottle, you can't use the same design. It was protected as a design patent many years ago. But we are talking about the three-dimensional features, the shape. And sometimes in the marketplace, a product would sell simply because of the design. The other one which we have not exploited very much in this country is the geographical indications. This one is a sign on a good which shows that a particular good is from a specific region. And if that region is popular for the characteristics of that particular good, then it will sell more. And of course, a good example would be when you talk about Kericho gold. Most people know, associate the tea from Kericho with some unique qualities. If you go to Mwea, we are talking about the Pishori. If you go to Makueni or Baringo, we may talk about some honey. There's the Keringet water. And that one shows a good way of industrial design, but also it's more of a geographical indication. And you can sell more because of where a product comes from. Trade secrets, of course, these ones are only valuable when they are of commercial concern, and you must know it for a limited group of persons. You remember we talked about patents, and when I used the example of Coca-Cola, if it was a patent, after 20 years, we'd all be having the formula, but they protected it as a trade secret, which means very few people know exactly what is the composition of Coca-Cola. But of course, they took proper steps to ensure that the information is not shared. So the few people who know what is in that, you have to sign confidentiality agreements and ensure that you keep it secret. Of course, why would you want to have an institutional intellectual property policy? As ministries or as state departments, you have agencies under you who are involved in R&D. And they may want to commercialize. We said research is an investment. How do you enhance that return on an investment? And how do you promote technology transfer? And of course, when you are negotiating with the private sector, they may want to know whether whatever product that you are having is protected by means of intellectual property. But of course, it also enhances disclosure. So when you are invited as a stakeholder in those R&D institutions or technology institutions, it is important that they are reasoning on why they need a institutional intellectual property policy is spot on. So when we talk about a policy, there are a few steps which are obvious. And we expect the institutions to determine that they require one, to formulate, have it adopted, implement, and take a evaluation and also review their policies, depending on their standard procedures. So what is important here is that as they develop these policies, they must consider both internal and external stakeholders. And once it is approved, it should be disseminated. So I'll just highlight some of the elements that go into this kind of policy. Of course, as it was indicated under the strategy, when you are talking about the mandate, the vision, mission, core values, and functions, this will be standard, and most likely they'll be extracted from the strategic plan. But key to this specific policy would be the policy statement. And then you must indicate the scope. Whom does it cover? Is it just the employees? I mean the staff, or if you have students, or if you have affiliates, or if you have collaborators, therefore the scope must be very clear. The other issue is that the organization must agree on the management of the policy. Are they going to establish an office, or are they going to have a committee, or are they going to have both? A good example will be HR. We'll have the head of HR, but will be a secretary to the Human Resource Management Committee. So depending on the operations of the institution, it may need to agree. And then when we talk about intellectual property, the aspects of ownership and rights of use are very important. So you must agree if it is a staff member who has created the intellectual property. Are they going to own it, or does it belong to the institution? If it is generated by students on attachment or interns, what happens? If it is collaborative research, you must be clear. If there was an agreement, maybe you will need to have some statement on intellectual property. And assume you are involved in training. What happens to the course material, which is being used by one institution? Can you move with it from your institution to another institution? Of course, the moment you have an intellectual asset, you will have to decide on the mode of commercialization. Do you want another institution to exploit your intellectual property or your intellectual asset? That is licensing. It may be inclusive or exclusive. They can also commercialize and also commercialize depending on the agreement. Or are you just going to assign it? You sell and forget about it. Of course, all assets being government agencies belong to the government, which means you may require some approvals at higher levels. And of course, you can have a combination of all those commercialization strategies. But these have to be spelled out in your policy. Of course, your staff must have, and everybody has the right to publish, this academic freedom, which is enshrined in the Constitution. But as much as you want to publish, it's good you consider the intellectual property protection first, and you give some timeline before you publish. Otherwise, the moment you publish, then you will lose that idea of having it protected. In terms of research contracts and agreements, they must be owned by the organization. And you must have those aspects of intellectual property, because at the end of the day, these are creations of the mind. And they must be consistent with the Kenyan law. Sharing of royalties, of course, this comes later when you commercialize. And as part of your policy, those involved, depending on your scope, they should be able to declare their conflict of interest and conflict of commitment. When you have disputes, have a mechanism within the policy on how to resolve those disputes. You start with the expert in intellectual property management office, then you go to the committee, then as an institution, if you have a director general, if you have a CEO, how do you go about it? Of course, it can always end up in the court or the industrial property tribunal. Of course, we have aspects of traditional knowledge. And as I mentioned earlier, we have the Act. And it's important your policy recognizes all these aspects. And as an organization, you should be able to agree whether your policy is reviewed after 5 years or 3 years, or when there are emerging issues. And the governing laws for all policies is actually the laws of Kenya. So for you to have an effective intellectual property management policy, look at it from the long-term point of view, involve your stakeholders, look at the culture of the organization, the policy and politics. Of course, these go together, and you look at it from the sector point of view. Maybe just as I finish, sometimes we talk about intellectual property without thinking very hard whether it can bite. And there was a case in, I think, 2010, when a student from the university violated copyright laws, and the student was stopped from graduating. So as we think about intellectual property policy, let's be aware that we have laws in the country, and occasionally they bite, and it's good for us to be aware. So thank you very much, Dr. Ngigi, for giving me time. And thank you, listeners, for your participation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Godfrey, for shedding light in this very important aspect. And again, this is something we are inviting our State Department, ministries, and the agencies downstream that we really need to have this document in place. Participant, I think now we are coming to the tail end of sensitization today. But I know this is a very, very exciting topic. Would give you an opportunity if you really want to raise some issues, comment, question, advice, what you may wish to do around this topic. I'm not even closing to this, even the earlier presentation. If we could have 5-10 minutes or so, if there are issues that you feel like you may wish to follow, or you may want some clarifications around that area. Again, I will ask you to raise your hand to be enabled to make your contribution, your question, comment. Feel free. You are invited to have these few minutes. Again, I'm really glad that we have canvassed our program according to time. We are within our time. Good. Any burning issues, comments, questions, suggestions? And again, our platform, the Q&As and the comment section are still open as well. And I just want to assure colleagues that you are following up. Yes, we're going to share these presentations toward the end of this presentation. Again, these are material for you to refer as we progress in this journey that we have agreed. It is important for us. So we'll share those materials. Okay, and okay, Peter.
Yeah,
just your hands up.
Yeah, in addition to the material shared, can we also get the recording? Because some of us miss a bit early, like me. I joined a bit late. It might assist me to learn what was captured before I joined. I hope I'm audible.
Now we can hear you.
Yeah, I was suggesting that we also get the recording of the proceeding for today, if possible. That is.
Yes,
especially for those who joined a bit late.
Thank you, Peter, for that. The link has already been shared. Yeah, because again, we really want to take advantage. You can access all the recordings for today's session on the YouTube, and my colleague has already shared the link on the chat. Okay, we'll just circulate it to us again. And again, we really want to even extend the invitation, even for the subsequent session tomorrow and the day after. Colleagues, you are invited to register and attend and make your follow-up, so that as I said in the morning, this is a journey that we want to make everybody work as simple as possible. So thank you, Peter. We are going to share that.
Asante, Daktari.
Okay, any other follow-up? Okay, I think with that, then, if we don't have any other follow-up issues, from our end, I will take this opportunity really to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time. This is a clear commitment that you are able to appreciate the role of the science technology generation mainstreaming. It is important. You are our key partners to make this a big success for our institution and for our country. We do want not take this for granted. Thank you so much for your time and really attending the numbers. We feel encouraged that we are together. So asanteni sana on behalf of the committee, the panelists here, on behalf of NACOSTI management. Tunawashukuru sana. Thank you. Let's keep discussing. Let's keep talking about these issues. We are just a phone call away, an email away. Kindly feel free to interact with us, follow up, question, and the likes. And we should be able to make this a big success with your partnership and this collaboration. I really think we need to bring this to an end then. And we are agreeing that we need to keep talking. Unless colleagues, anybody who really want to make final comment, remarks from the panelists? Okay, then, thank you so much then. Ladies and gentlemen, I really also want to take this early opportunity to wish you Merry Christmas as we break for this festive season, and wish you a prosperous New Year 2024 as we continue with this big journey that we are working together. Asanteni sana, and may God bless you abundantly as we continue to work for this country. Thank you.